Chapter 2241. Since Han Fei could see through the dream island at a glance, it meant that the danger on the island was not serious, at least not for him. However, Bai Ran and the others were not fools. They looked at the central area immediately. Bai Ran said, "The weirdness starts there. Let's go there." Bam! Tian Hong, who had been silent, stepped on the air and went to the edge of the central area ahead of the others. This was the tacit understanding between him and Bai Ran. If Ghost Blade hadn't died, he would have attacked together with Tian Hong. Thud! Tian Hong picked up the iron rod and smashed it on the ground. With a thunderous noise, the area within a radius of hundreds of kilometers collapsed as if a nuclear explosion had been triggered. The Dream Island was not large in the first place. If someone attacked the central area, the people there would definitely be affected. Therefore, the power inside the white mist immediately began to resist the impact of Tian Hong's attack. Immediately, Tian Hong said, "Come out." As he lifted the Vajra pillar, Han Fei could clearly see the aura of the heavenly way fused into this strike. This made Han Fei's heart skip a beat. Tian Hong's strength had increased. Accompanied by Tian Hong's attack, the white mist was hit into a spiral, but it was soon blocked by a soft power. "Stop! Fellow cultivators, please don't attack." At this moment, an old voice came from the white mist, as if asking Tian Hong to stop. Bai Ran said casually, "That's enough." Like a robot, Tian Hong withdrew the giant pillar. Then, an old man and a middle-aged man walked out of the white mist. "I didn't know you were coming. Please excuse me. I'm Ji Chang, and this is Ding Yuan, the village leader." At this moment, Bai Ran and Han Fei had come to Tian Hong. Bai Ran asked, "What's this white mist?" The old man hurried to explain, "It's the mist of the dream tree, which can hide part of the island. We are all hermits and don't like to be disturbed. We only exchange some resources with the outside world occasionally. So, it seems a bit mysterious to outsiders. You are all real experts. If you need anything, you can come to the village and have a look. We are actually very poor." As soon as the old man came out, he started acting pitiful. She sounded sincere, but Han Fei felt that something was wrong. If there were no surprises, this dream island should also be called the Hidden Island. The clam was right. However, Han Fei didn't notice any fluctuation in the old man's voice. As a reclusive person, wasn't his response a little too steady when faced with a powerhouse that suddenly appeared? Also, the middle-aged man just followed the old man without saying anything. Although there was vigilance in his eyes, Han Fei saw that the man was circulating his spiritual energy as usual. Shouldn't a normal person be ready for battle at this moment? The circulation of the spiritual qi in his body would definitely not be so smooth. But these details were actually very difficult to see under the same realm. Therefore, Bai Ran did not feel anything different. In fact, Panning even asked, "Is it really the Hidden Island?" The old man smiled and said, Yes, there are also people who call this place the Hidden Island, but most of them have never been here before, so they don't know much about us." Panning said, "So be it. You are already living in such a remote place. Why are you still hiding? Is there any secret that you can't see? Hey! This young lady is wrongly accusing us. It's just a lousy island, what kind of shameful secret could there be? If you don't mind, you can enter the island and have a look. Our village is very small. There are less than 30 people in total. Most of them can't walk on the main road." As he spoke, old man Ji Chang led by Ran and the others inside. Because the surrounding mist was largely broken by Tian Hong's attack, they could vaguely see the scene inside. There seemed to be a big tree, and some people seemed to be looking at them. Bai Ran naturally didn't feel threatened, but Panning looked at Han Fei and Li Shinhao and snorted, thinking, "Look, I was not tricked, was I? What danger can they pose to us with such little ability?" Li Shinhao was also a little confused, but he didn't show it. He just looked at Bai Ran with a smile. If this big boss dared to enter, he dared to enter too. Whether or not they would encounter an ambush, it had nothing to do with him anyway. I'm here to freeload off the team. Han Fei didn't say anything. He was also curious about the world outside the chaotic wasteland and wanted to see what mysteries there were here. Therefore, the group of people also followed them out. When they followed old man Ji Chang and the village leader named Ding Yuan, they only walked for about 100 meters, took a few detours, and soon appeared inside the white mist. Walala, the first thing that caught Bai Ranran's eyes was not the cultivators who looked at them curiously, but the sky full of tiny pink petals the size of a thumb, which looked like cherry blossoms all over the sky. The top half of the tree that was thousands of meters high was almost pinkish purple. It was a beautiful view. It's so beautiful. How can there be such a beautiful place in this world? Pan-Ning exclaimed and reached out to catch the petals. Even Bai Ranran couldn't help but take a few. She let the cherry blossom leaves fall on her body, emitting a faint refreshing fragrance. The first thing they saw was the beautiful petal shower. When they came to their senses, they looked at the other people in the village. There were a total of 34 people in the village, 22 men and 12 women. They were all experts in the Pioneer Sea realm. Their strength was uneven. Only the village leader and a woman were at the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm. The others were a little bit weaker. Bai Ranran and the others didn't seem to notice anything wrong. Even if these people attacked them, they were no match for any one of them. Even Li Xinhao, who had been pretending to be stupid, could kill all 34 people here if he really went all out. Bai Ranran immediately lost interest. She just said indifferently, 2 things. Do you have a sea map of the surrounding area? And where is the largest settlement in the wilderness near here? Bai Ranran didn't think that these people knew the way to the divine capital dynasty, because she felt that it would be very difficult for them to cross the wilderness with their strength. Since they couldn't cross the wilderness, how could they know the location of the divine capital dynasty? Old man Ji Chang hurriedly said, yes, yes, yes. We will have a sea map. But the area is not very large. However, there are still quite a number of large settlements in this area. While the old man was talking, Han Fei suddenly felt that something was wrong. He felt that his eyelids suddenly became abnormally heavy, and the long-lost sleepiness suddenly hit him. However, as a sky creator, he didn't even fall asleep in the star sea. He even lasted a day in the endless void. How could he fall asleep in such a shabby place? When Han Fei came back to his senses, he felt as if there were countless hands on his body, as if to seal him. And this method of sealing him was to fall asleep. Plop! At this moment, Li Xinhao fell on the ground with a plop, and for a moment, he was snoring like thunder. Pan-Ning didn't fare much better. She also fell down, and she didn't last 2 seconds longer than Li Xinhao. Even Tian Hong and Bai Ranran staggered, as if they had been greatly affected by it. And Han Fei. His heart skipped a beat. Since there were already 2 people lying on the ground, there was no need to add one more. Thus, he also took the opportunity to lie down and sleep on the ground. Bam! Tian Hong was a little better, but he suddenly sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, as if he was resisting the power that made him fall asleep. The only one who could still resist was Bai Ranran. The fine scales on her body slightly opened and closed, and turbid air was discharged from her body. You're courting death. Who? A white dragon appeared between Bai Ranran's eyebrows, and the dragon roared and spewed out world-burning white flames. The cherry blossoms in the sky were annihilated and turned into ashes in midair. At this moment, a voice chuckled softly. No wonder you're the strongest of the younger generation in the city of scavengers. Bai Ranran, I heard that you once opened the sea and split the sky. Let's see if you can kill me today. Bai Ranran frowned. Who are you? The man laughed and said, I will tell you after you die. In the blink of an eye, this person's heaven-opening strength burst forth. Taking advantage of the fact that Bai Ranran was resisting the power of slumber, he swept out with the Annihilation Sword Scar in an attempt to kill Bai Ranran, a woman who was in his way. But then the white dragon stretched out its claws and attacked this man. Humph! You're just a companion spirit of the sea creator realm. How dare you! The man raised his hand and pointed a finger at the air, and the white dragon's claws collapsed. Fortunately, Bai Ran Ran took the opportunity to summon her second companion spirit. The sea brush appeared, and the sword light of the sky creator realm slashed out of the circle and was sealed in the endless void. Bai Ran Ran snorted coldly, and the air around her exploded. It seemed that she had finally broken free from the power of sleep. No matter who you are, you're just a sky creator realm cultivator. What can you do to me? That person didn't expect Bai Ran Ran to break free from the seal of deep slumber so quickly, and he was shocked. He immediately shouted, "Everyone, attack! Kill those four first." Han Fei was considering whether he should attack or not. He was wondering which family had sent this person. Since he knew Bai Ran Ran, it could only be someone from the City of Wanderers and the City of Primordial. Come to think of it, this should be what Emochi meant when she said that this trip was not smooth. This was definitely not just for Bai Ran Ran and her team, but for the entire scavenger city. If there was no accident, the camp of ascetics in the east should also be controlled by someone. Han Fei had thought about killing Bai Ran Ran and the others before, but now he didn't think so. No matter how they grew, it was impossible for them to keep up with his growth speed. On the contrary, if Bai Ran Ran and the others died, he would be questioned. At this moment, Bai Ran Ran stretched out her hand and drew a line in the air, but the Sky Creator Realm Cultivator's body stiffened in the air. The man was shocked. You're using more than one path. Divine Seal, Divine Descent. From the City of Primordial. Bai Ran Ran's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't continue to attack this person, but prepared to stop those who wanted to kill Han Fei and the others. But as soon as she turned her head, she saw a dazzling sword light sweeping up into the air. The sword light merged with the Tao and swept past the Sky Creator Realm powerhouse in an instant. Bai Ran Ran raised her eyebrows. The unity of man and sword? Puff! This heaven-opening expert was directly killed by the blade that contained the aura of the heaven and earth Tao. Even his spirit was mostly destroyed by the power of the heaven way in the blade light. Chapter 2242. As long as the method was right, it wouldn't be a big problem. The heaven-opening state created a star sea. At first, it was unrealistic to want to travel in the star sea as soon as the sky was created. Therefore, in the beginning, the function of the star sea was to let the origin sea breed more great ways, so that the origin sea could connect with the heavenly way. Therefore, in the early stage of the heaven-opening state, only in terms of comprehensive strength, physique, divine soul, and other aspects, was far superior to the sea-opening state. However, when the best of the sea-opening state also mastered the Tao of heaven and earth and could connect with the heavenly way, then in theory, the difference between the sea-opening state and the sky-opening state would only be the difference of strength, not the so-called suppression of the realm. Therefore, when Bai Ran Ran saw Han Fei's slash, she knew that Han Fei had made a great progress, and this heaven-opening state was probably doomed. Puff! The divine soul of this heaven-opening state was not completely destroyed. This was a flaw that Han Fei deliberately left. Seeing this, Bai Ran Ran immediately took action. The white dragon sucked all the divine soul power in the range into its mouth, and then it exploded in the white dragon's mouth, emitting a burst of green smoke. Rumble! At that moment, the weather changed, and a crack of the Great Way appeared in the sky, spanning more than 100,000 kilometers. Unfortunately, perhaps because the sea realm was too large and there were many strong masters, such a crack of the Great Way didn't attract much attention. And the local masters of the Dream Island who were going to attack Han Fei and the others were all horrified at this moment, as if they were shocked. These two were only at the sea-opening state. How could they resist the influence of the dream-eating technique? At this time, Ji Chang and the village leader Ding Yuan were both horrified, but they didn't dare to retreat. These two were the masters of the sea-opening state, which was equivalent to the heaven-opening state, wasn't it? When Bai Ran Ran looked at them, Ji Chang hurriedly said, "You two, let's talk it over. We were completely threatened by this person. This person came to our island decades ago. How can we compete with a heaven-opening state master? We have no choice but to obey him. In fact, we just want to live in seclusion and don't want to get involved in other people's battles. Old man Ji Chang said innocently. Bai Ran Ran took the initiative to ask, how do we wake them up? Old man Ji Chang quickly took out a few white fruits and said, these are the fruits of the Dream Eater tree, eat them and you'll be cured. Bai Ran Ran took the fruit and did not suspect anything. She felt that this old man would not do something stupid. The only heaven-opening tier cultivator on this island had already fallen, and he and Yi Fenglu had not been disturbed by the dream realm yet, so how would these people dare to act rashly? However, Han Fei shook his head slightly. Just as Bai Ran Ran fed the fruits to the three of them, Han Fei suddenly said, wait a minute. Bai Ran Ran couldn't help but look at Han Fei inquiringly. Han Fei didn't even look at the fruit. Instead, he looked at the old man and said, you eat one first. No matter how stupid Bai Ran Ran was, she could sense that something was wrong. It was right for Han Fei to be cautious in this situation. How could she trust a stranger? Bai Ran Ran wondered if she had gone silly. He actually wanted to feed these fruits to Pan Ying and the others. Old man Ji Chang was shocked and couldn't help but look up at Han Fei, his eyes glowing fiercely. At that moment, all the sea-opening tier cultivators behind the old man started to burn their essence blood and charged at Han Fei and Bai Ran Ran. It was a pity that Bai Ran Ran was the strongest cultivator in the law enforcement camp, not to mention Han Fei. If he attacked with all his strength, he could destroy this island with a finger. How could these people deal with him? Therefore, Han Fei didn't need to do anything. Bai Ran Ran personally took action. Her dragon devoured the wilderness, her brush shaped into a fierce blade. One sea expansion expert after another was cut apart. Han Fei stopped old man Ji Chang who was about to run up the tree. The old man said fiercely, boy, you ruined my plan. Don't think about living well. Bloom, Dream Eater Divine Tree. Han Fei looked back, only to see that the 1,000-meter-tall ancient tree began to sway, and the sky was covered with pink and white petals. Such dense petals were very strange. Han Fei didn't give old man Ji Chang a chance to escape, but directly annihilated old man Ji Chang's body and soul with a backhand slash. But Han Fei's attack didn't stop. He hurriedly slashed again. His Taoist body had the power of annihilation, and he tried to cut into the pink and white petals. However, although many petals were annihilated, more could still escape. Han Fei returned to Bai Ran Ran's side. This flower is not a flower. It's more like a kind of soul poison. Okay. Bai Ran Ran nodded. After taking a glance at Han Fei, she suddenly picked up the brush and began to draw. This time, she drew a sea of flames. This fire was not true fire, but something similar to soul fire. When the petals touched the sea of fire, they were like ice and fire, and a huge number of petals were burned on the spot. Han Fei was also slightly surprised, because when she fought against Neza, Feng Shen, and Ntufu, Bai Ran Ran had never used this skill. She can draw other people's Taoist paths in a short time. Is this also a kind of borrowing Taoist paths? Han Fei pondered, and Bai Ran Ran glanced at Han Fei and said, this is the talent skill of my associate spirit, but I hope you can keep it a secret. Han Fei nodded slightly. It seems that the problem lies in the tree. I'm afraid these people have long been controlled by the tree. Bai Ran Ran asked, how do you know there is something wrong with the fruit? Han Fei said, these people are too calm. And you, at that moment, seemed to be fascinated. Bai Ran Ran was shocked. Indeed, she didn't think that there was something wrong with the fruit at all. She just felt that Ji Chang was very trustworthy and didn't need to doubt him. Now it seemed that this should also be one of Ji Chang's abilities, which could win the trust of others and catch people off guard. Bai Ran Ran asked, thank you. Why are you not affected? However, when Bai Ran Ran saw Han Fei's indifferent eyes, she seemed to understand something. This person was also an emotionless person. It seemed that it was only natural that he could resist the dream invasion technique. Perhaps because Bai Ranran burned the pink petals, Tian Hong quickly got up. It seemed that he had blocked the dream invasion technique. Then, Pan Ying and Li Shenhao woke up one after another. Among them, Han Fei could tell that Pan Ying was really asleep, and Li Shenhao was probably pretending. He couldn't help but be curious. This fatty was quite interesting. The gap between the number 18 farm and Pan Litian's number 1 farm was not small. However, the gap between the two people who walked out of the farm seemed to be quite big. Perhaps Pan Ying was stronger than Li Shenhao in terms of combat ability and comprehensive strength, but in terms of temperament, sensitivity, behavior, and many other aspects, he was much weaker than Li Shenhao. Pan Ying exclaimed, "We've been tricked. We've been dragged into a dream." Li Shenhao also exclaimed, "That scared me. I dreamed that a tree wanted to eat my brain." When Li Shenhao shouted that, Han Fei couldn't help but turn his head to look at him. The latter immediately felt a little guilty, but he thought that he should just follow Pan Ying's exclamation. Pan Ying asked, "Where are those bastards?" Bai Ranran said, "They're all dead." When Bai Ranran finished speaking in a carefree manner, everyone heard a akacha sound. It was the ancient tree that was thousands of feet tall, and it actually broke apart with a loud bang. Then, it was sucked into the origin sea, and Han Fei appeared under the tree at some point in time. After that, he stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion in the void, scooping out the earth-veined spring water. Before Pan Ying could be surprised, Li Shenhao shouted, "Brother Feng Lu, you're awesome." A strange light flashed in Pan Ying's eyes. She couldn't help but look at Bai Ranran and sense the power left in the air. She was sure that only Bai Ranran and Han Fei were fighting just now. Bai Ranran said, "The people of Primitive City arranged a heaven creation state expert to ambush here 10 years ago. It's not necessarily an ambush, but if it's someone else, it's very likely that we'll be tricked. Destroy this island." The people of Primitive City. A heaven creation state expert. For a moment, even Tian Hong couldn't help but turn his head. They didn't expect that there would be a heaven creation state expert hiding here. Didn't this mean that Bai Ranran and Han Fei had cooperated to kill a heaven creation state expert? Bai Ranran was still alright, as he had once killed a heaven opening realm expert by himself. However, this changed everyone's opinion of Han Fei. When Han Fei returned, he said indifferently, "If I'm not mistaken, the camp of the ascetics has also fallen." At this moment, everyone's face couldn't help but turn ugly. Wasn't that right? If Primitive City had started planning a long time ago, then the nearby forces should have been replaced by them. In this way, they could hunt indiscriminately. However, Bai Ranran said, "The First Lord should have noticed this. Perhaps, Lord Blazing Heaven has personally taken action to solve the problem." However, Han Fei didn't think so. The three major forces, even if it was for the trial, would usually comb through the nearby wanderer camps. This dream island was so close to the chaotic wasteland. Was there something wrong with the Primitive City's brain to ambush them here? Li Shenhao said, "I think we don't have to worry about these things. Although the people of Primitive City have been exposed, the other wanderer camps might not necessarily be occupied by the Primitive City." Everyone couldn't help but look at Li Shenhao, only to hear the latter chuckle and say, "I mean, what if this wanderer camp is also one of the trials? What if this is a trial specially prepared by the experts of the three major forces?" Pan Ying said, "You mean, the Primitive City hunted us, and maybe our people also hunted the people of Primitive City?" A total of 150 people were selected. Is it interesting to hunt each other like this? Don't let everyone die as soon as they appear. Bai Ranran's heart flashed. No. This kind of trial is more of a warning. It is indeed a complete lesson for us. In this wilderness, no one is worthy of trust except our own people. Chapter 2243. Han Fei guessed that whether it was Bai Ranran, Pan Ying, or Li Shenhao, they all had trump cards that they hadn't used yet. This time, among the 150 people selected, nearly 50 of them were children of the top 10 lords. The children of these big families didn't have much else, but they had a good foundation and a lot of treasures. Therefore, Han Fei also felt that this trial should be just a simple test. If he hadn't been here just now, then Bai Ran Ran would have been able to solve the battle alone. Even if Bai Ran Ran wasn't around, Tian Hong would still have a way to deal with him. Perhaps he would just have to suffer some minor injuries. Even if Tian Hong wasn't here, Li Shinhao should also be able to solve the problem. This guy pretended to be a good person, but Han Fei never thought that anyone who could enter the first squad was really useless. As for Pan Ying, it was hard to say. At present, this girl lacked experience and training, but she didn't lack foundation. From her occasional attacks along the way, it could be seen that once she was rich in combat experience, she wouldn't be weak. If what Han Fei had encountered so far was just the first round of the trial, then this trial was too dangerous. In that case, this trial was too dangerous. It seemed that Imochi was right. This trip was indeed not smooth. The Dream Eater tree was uprooted by Han Fei, and the white mist around the Dream Island was also dissipating. After losing the Earth Vein spring water and experiencing a great battle, the surrounding waves were roaring, and the Earth Vein under the island began to collapse. This Dream Island, in the eyes of Han Fei and the others, sank nearly half. At this point, everyone was shocked. Whether this was a trial or not, they were no longer in the chaotic wasteland. Everything in front of them told them that it was equally dangerous outside the wasteland. Bai Ran Ran took a breath and said, "From now on, don't trust others easily, and don't take this as a trial." 3 months later, Han Fei and the others felt that they had completely walked out of the wilderness. As for the sea map that old man Ji Chang had given them, Bai Ran Ran and the others specially went to take a look at it in order to verify it, or to deepen the suspicion of the people of the outside world. As expected, they were brought to a land of demonic sunflowers, where there was a demonic sunflower that dominated millions of kilometers of sea. Bai Ran Ran and the others fought with the demonic sunflower. Since the demonic sunflower was a demonic plant from a remote region, even though the demonic sunflower was defeated in the end, Bai Ran Ran and the others failed to kill it. At this point, they had thrown away the sea chart that Ji Chang had given them, and Pan Ying had even angrily said that outsiders could not be trusted. On this day, with the sea map obtained by Pan Ying's soul searching, they were heading for a large settlement named Magic Moonlight City that was closest to them. Han Fei didn't want to expose his ability to search souls, so Pan Ying led the way. According to Pan Ying, it would take more than 2 months to reach Magic Moonlight City. Because of this, Li Shinhao often sighed with emotion. This wilderness is really big. It's been almost half a year since we left the wasteland, but we haven't even found a single large colony. At this moment, Han Fei suddenly pinched his fingers. Danger? Han Fei scanned the area with his perception, but he didn't find anything special after scanning more than 6 million kilometers. He even confirmed it seriously in a roundabout manner. Han Fei thought to himself that there must be danger on the way ahead, and they would run into it later. 100 seconds later, suddenly, the void was torn open in everyone's sight. It was a giant octopus that stretched for more than 800 kilometers. Li Shinhao exclaimed, "What a huge octopus! How strong is it? We can't just rush over, can we?" Pan Ying nodded. "It's obviously coming for us. How does it know where we are? Why did it set up an ambush here?" Bai Ran Ran said, "Get ready to fight. Tianhong, get ready to attack. Yi Fenglu, get ready to draw your sword. Li Shinhao, get ready to use your Dao." Han Fei thought to himself that he still didn't know what Li Shinhao's Dao was. Because Yi Fenglu was indifferent, he wouldn't take the initiative to ask. Li Shinhao exclaimed, "Are we really going to fight it?" Bai Ran Ran nodded. Pan Ying is right. How did it know that we would be on this road? We have to figure this out. As she spoke, Bai Ran Ran drew her sword and was ready to fight. And after the huge octopus broke open the void, the first thing it did was to spit out a group of as many as 3 Heaven Opening Realm experts and 13 Sea Expansion Realm experts. These people rushed at the 4 of them, roaring and charging at them. Bai Ran made a prompt decision and shouted, "Run." The reason why 3 heaven-opening realm experts appeared at once, and the big octopus itself seemed to be a heaven-opening realm expert, which already showed that this octopus was not an ordinary person. And on their side, there were 5 sea expansion realm experts. How could they fight it? And in addition to this octopus, in addition to these people it spat out, on the head of the octopus, another person was standing there, quietly watching all this. This meant that the other party had at least 5 heaven-opening realm experts. 5 heaven-opening realm experts, a dozen sea expansion realm experts, and even more experts. Although Bai Ran was confident, she was not so confident that she could beat 5 heaven-opening realm experts at once. Besides, the big octopus and the person on the head of the octopus seemed to be stronger. Run separately. At this time, running separately was the best choice, so that these people could be forced to disperse. And once these people dispersed, if there was only one heaven-opening realm expert, then Bai Ran had nothing to be afraid of. She was even confident that the members of her first squad could at least deal with one heaven-opening realm expert. Even if they couldn't beat them, they could run away. But then, a terrifying scene happened. First of all, when Han Fei and the others ran a million miles away, they suddenly found that the void had been blocked, and a large array had burst out in all directions. Bai Ran summoned the sea brush companion spirit and broke the array in the air, but as soon as she took the brush, the expert who was standing on the head of the big octopus had already blocked in front of her. On the other side, Li Xinhao exclaimed, "Don't chase me. I'm poor. Look at my battle suit, it's patched." While speaking, Li Xinhao magically opened his battle suit, and everyone saw a patch inside. Not to mention these people, even Han Fei was dumbfounded. A dignified sea expansion cultivator's battle suit actually needed to be patched? Would it kill you to reforge it? Would it consume a lot of your resources? On the other side, Pan Ying crushed a jade slip, and Pan Litian's figure appeared in the void. The expression of the man who was sniping Bai Ran suddenly changed drastically. Activate the energy shield. Everyone, retreat. Then, the man disappeared and ran back to the big octopus. After all, they were very close. Hence, they had enough time to return to the big octopus before Pan Litian appeared and attacked. Pan Ying shouted, "Grandpa, we've been attacked by this octopus." Pan Litian frowned slightly in the void. "See Monster Fortress? If you dare to touch the 10,000 scales, I'll find you, uproot you, and kill you from this world." Then, Pan Litian attacked from afar. It seemed like he could pierce through the big octopus with a finger. However, at this moment, an energy shield rose. Rumble. The force of Pan Litian's attack blasted a huge hole in the energy shield. The powerhouse forcefully blocked Pan Litian's attack with the mighty force of heaven and earth. He did not know what the energy shield was, but it had managed to block at least 80% of Pan Litian's attack's power. Even so, the man in the lead turned slightly pale after withstanding Pan Litian's attack. It was clear how powerful Pan Litian's attack was. Humph. At this moment, the big octopus continued to vomit. This time, it spat out 22 people. Among them were 3 Heaven Creation stage powerhouses. The rest were Pioneer Sea stage powerhouses. In the blink of an eye, Pan Ying and the rest were all confused. The man in the lead seemed to be afraid that Pan Ying would take out the protective jade slip Pan Litian had given him again. He shouted, "You can continue to use this protective jade slip. However, when you use it, I guarantee I'll be able to block it and kill you on the spot." Pan Ying shouted coldly, "Do you think I'm afraid of you? Do you believe I won't take out the venerable emperor's jade slip if you kill me?" Han Fei was speechless as he listened from the side. As expected, people from wealthy families were heroic. The venerable emperor's jade slip was the 10,000 scales emperor's jade slip. Pan Ying must not have noticed the uniqueness of this battle. First of all, these people did not have any killing intent. Second of all, these people had not shown any killing intent until now. However, Pan Ying had completely exposed his trump card. Fortunately, Bai Ran noticed something was amiss and stopped Pan Ying immediately. She said, "Why are you panicking?" After saying that, Bai Ran faced the middle-aged man. "You have so many powerhouses, but you're stopping us juniors. What's the matter?" The middle-aged man smiled faintly. "Looks like this is your first time in the wilderness. You don't even know about the sea monster fortress. However, you're the prodigies among prodigies. This means you're from the chaotic wastelands. Moreover, you're going to participate in the Divine Capital Dynasty's competition, right?" Chapter 2244. Even Han Fei was a little surprised that this man knew where they came from and the purpose of their trip. Bai Ran asked, "Why do you say that?" The middle-aged man glanced around and motioned those who were about to attack to step back. He said, "If you have been in the wilderness for a long time, you must know the existence of the sea monster fortress. And your strength indicates that you are extraordinary. Judging from the protective jade slip just now, that should be a super strong master at the late stage of the star transformation realm. In this wilderness, it is theoretically impossible for such a strong master to appear. Since you have appeared, there is only one answer. You are from the chaotic wasteland." Bai Ran asked, "So, you allow us to leave?" The middle-aged man nodded slightly, but then said, "You can leave, but you have to pay something. Of course, I am kind enough to explain some basic knowledge of the wilderness to you, so that you don't know anything about it. This is a deal." Their hearts sank slightly. Hearing this middle-aged man's words, Panning secretly took out another jade slip. "What is the sea monster fortress?" The middle-aged man chuckled. "In the entire sea realm, there are 5 divine lands. Among them, the wilderness occupies the largest area. In the wilderness, there are some special places, such as your chaotic wasteland, Ghost Strait, Sea of Gods and Demons, Floating City, Boundless Mining Area, etc. It can be said that all the forces in the sea realm are actually built on the wilderness. And the wilderness is boundless and dangerous. Whether it is independent cultivators or the major forces, they have never stopped exploring it. And in the wilderness, the most common kind of wilderness gathering place, do you know what it is?" How did Han Fei and the others know? Including Bai Ran, none of them had ever been out of the chaotic wasteland. Even Pan Ying, as a core descendant of the First Lord of the Scavenger City, had never learned any information about the outside world. Perhaps this was the intention of the major forces in the chaotic wasteland, but in any case, they really knew nothing about the outside world. The middle-aged man knew that Han Fei and the others couldn't answer, so he said, "In the wilderness, there are only 2 situations, hunting and being hunted. The sea monster fortress is a gathering place for many strong masters, relying on sea beasts, to resist strong enemies, and to hunt conveniently. Its essence is still plunder." Bai Ran asked, "Does that mean that Senior is determined to rob us?" The middle-aged man smiled and said, "I know you have extraordinary origins, but no matter how extraordinary you are, your battle prowess is just for show. I don't want to offend the experts behind you, but it doesn't mean that you can leave in front of us without paying anything." Therefore, he had to pay the price. "Meanwhile, I won't be stingy in explaining the rules of the wilderness to you all." Han Fei suddenly asked, "How did you find us?" That was what Han Fei had been curious about. Although they could hide in the void, they were moving fast. It would not be easy for the enemy to locate them and approach them quietly. The middle-aged man didn't evade the question. He said, "Perception is the easiest power to be deceived. Perhaps you're too used to the primal chaos wasteland that you don't know that it's a place where the strong prey on the weak. Cultivators can use all sorts of methods to avoid detection. That's all I have to say. As for how to avoid detection, if you are willing to pay a certain amount of resources, I won't be stingy to tell you." Han Fei's heart moved. He didn't want to spend money to buy information. As for how to avoid detection, as long as he was willing, he had many ways to find out. As for whether Bai Ran and the others were willing to spend money, he didn't know. Bai Ran asked, "Senior, how many resources do you need?" Bai Ran needed to weigh the price. Although they were confident that they could escape, the price of escaping was also not low. How could a late-stage star transformation protective jade slip be so easily obtained? For example, the value of Pan Ying's jade slip was indescribably high. If they had to spend a few jade slips of this level just to fight this battle, it would be too much of a loss. The middle-aged man smiled and said, 5 people, 1,000,000 strands of chaotic energy each. This is only one. I heard that the primal chaos wasteland produces energy crystals. 1,000,000 strands of chaotic energy per person. Han Fei's heart moved. From this person's asking price, Han Fei felt that this person actually had a certain understanding of the primal chaos wasteland, but it wasn't deep enough. This meant that he had never been to the primal chaos wasteland. A normal peak stage sea expansion realm cultivator probably couldn't take out 1,000,000 strands of chaotic energy. Only people like Han Fei, who had a shocking amount of chaotic energy, could absorb it from the endless void. As for energy crystals, who could take out 1,000,000 of them casually? This middle-aged man must have seen that Han Fei and the others were talented and powerful, which was why he dared to ask for such an exorbitant price. Ridiculous! Pan Ying shouted in a low voice, do you know how many resources this is? You dare to ask for it? Do you really think you can do whatever you want with 7 or 8 heaven-opening realm cultivators? With that, Pan Ying held a jade slip in one hand and said, believe it or not, I can pierce through you and make you get no resources at all. Ha ha ha, the middle-aged man laughed and said, little girl, it depends on the situation. How many do you have for a full-strength attack of this level? I can say very bluntly that I can block 3 more. Maybe you have a 4th, a 5th, or even a 10th. But don't forget one thing. You have just come out of the chaotic wasteland. If you use these resources today, what will you do when you encounter other enemies in the future? Before Pan Ying scolded him, the middle-aged man continued, you can block the sea monster fortresses, but what about the mobile fortresses? That's a large wilderness settlement composed of multiple sea monster fortresses. There are dozens of heaven-opening realm cultivators and hundreds of sea expansion realm cultivators. Even the most exaggerated mobile fortresses are guarded by venerable emperors. Do you want to scare them with your jade slips? At this time, someone sneered and said, you brats, you won't lose anything if you suffer a loss now. Save the treasures for later use. Why waste them here? Someone said disdainfully, little girl, do you really want to fight to the death? Is this what you want? Bai Ranran glanced at Pan Ying and Han Fei, and then looked at the middle-aged man. The 30% of the resources you just mentioned is my limit. Otherwise, let's fight. I promise that none of you will survive. The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes slightly. Little girl, don't be so stubborn. 30% is too little, at least 60%. However, Bai Ranran snorted coldly. Pan Ying, Li Xinhao. Immediately, 5 or 6 jade slips appeared beside each of them. Bai Ranran sneered. What will happen to us in the future is a matter for the future. Now, I'm giving you face by giving you the resources. Don't be greedy. Bai Ranran originally wanted to say that she would only give them 20%, but after some consideration, she realized that if she only gave them 20%, the other party was likely to choose to fight first. By then, they might be able to beat them back, but it wouldn't be worth it. Just as the middle-aged man said, they had just left the chaotic wasteland and still had a long way to go. If they used all their trump cards now, what would they use in the future? Therefore, it was meaningless to fight such a battle. Why should they fight? The middle-aged man was silent for a moment, then suddenly said with a smile, fine. Young people nowadays are really difficult to deal with. 30% it is. This time, Bai Ranran shouted, give it to us. They could indeed give these resources, but they all felt a little aggrieved. Especially Pan Ying, she really wanted to go up and kill all these people. But Han Fei was different. He could understand this kind of robbery. This was like pirates. They made a living by robbing as much as they could. As long as they intimidated you, they could always get some resources. Everyone had their own rules of survival. If possible, not everyone would become a pirate. However, no matter what this middle-aged man did, he had robbed Han Fei of his things. And Han Fei had never been a person who would allow others to rob him of his things. After Han Fei and the others all gave him the resources, the middle-aged man nodded slightly, and those who had surrounded Han Fei and the others all returned to the back of the big octopus. Then the void around them twisted, and they all disappeared. The middle-aged man looked at Han Fei and the others with a smile and said, "I look forward to our next cooperation." After saying that, the giant octopus's body turned transparent. Its tentacles reached into the void, and its huge body drilled into it. In an instant, it disappeared without a trace. Pan-Ning asked, "Sister Ran-Ran, what should we do now? If we often encounter these sea monster fortresses along the way, won't we be robbed sooner or later?" Bai Ran-Ran said, "There are loopholes in his words. In this wilderness, there can't be such looting sea monster fortresses everywhere. At least, there will be special places like cities, which can be used for the exchange of materials and for the rest of the wilderness wanderers." This man just deliberately made the wilderness look ferocious. Li Shenhao asked, "Then our top priority is to find a large gathering place for wilderness wanderers, right?" Bai Ran-Ran nodded. "Yes. We are too unfamiliar with the wilderness now. It's not a good idea to go on like this." And Han Fei said indifferently, "I think we can go separately." "Separately?" Pan-Ning immediately said, "If we go separately and encounter such a sea monster fortress, we will have nowhere to run." Han Fei said indifferently, "He didn't answer my question." "How did he find us?" Pan-Ning asked, "Just by chance?" Bai Ran-Ran shook her head. "No. With our strength, even if the perception of a heaven-opening state being sweeps over us, our hearts will be stirred. So, first of all, we can rule out the possibility that the other party detected our location with their perception." Li Shenhao suddenly said, "Is it possible that the creatures in the surrounding sea have their spies? And then they tell them that we have been here in some way?" Pan-Ning said, "How is it possible? How many spies do they have in this vast wilderness? You know, they are always moving." Bai Ran-Ran suddenly said, "It's the Sea of Stars. They must have observed us through the Sea of Stars." Han Fei nodded. "That's the fundamental reason why they all hide in the Sea of Stars." Chapter 2245. Everybody was shocked by what he said. They were not stupid. Although none of them had opened the sky, they were not far from it. They had all learned something about opening the sky, such as the Sea of Stars. Li Shenhao was surprised. "We didn't open the sky, did we? Why were we detected in the Sea of Stars?" Pan-Ning explained, "The origin sea of the experts will appear in the Sea of Stars. Maybe we can't see our own origin sea from the Sea of Stars. However, other people may observe the Sea of Stars to determine the experts nearby and how many there are." "That's right, we are too close, the origin sea is extremely close. At this moment, if someone can observe the stars and look for enemies, they will find us gathered together." Hiss, Bai Ran-Ran looked a bit weird. "I seem to understand something." Pan-Ning asked, "Understand what?" Bai Ran-Ran explained, "At first, Lord Li Tian didn't object to us teaming up and leaving. Maybe, at that time, he had already foreseen that we would be targeted by the fortress of sea monsters." Li Shenhao exclaimed, "Is this also one of the trials?" Bai Ran-Ran nodded slightly. "Maybe, Lord Li Tian is just telling us the cruelty of the wilderness in this way. He left us to face the dangers alone without telling us." Pan-Ning opened her mouth, thinking that Pan Litian was her grandfather, and he didn't even tell her that. "So, splitting up is the best solution?" Li Shenhao asked, "Then, won't we be doomed if we're caught alone?" "Boss Ran-Ran, can I go with you?" Bai Ran-Ran glanced coldly at Li Shenhao and said, "From the moment we left the primal chaos wastelands, our only goal was to obtain a real map of the desolate sea region. Or to find a large camp in the wilderness. So far, we haven't obtained anything, and we haven't found anything. Logically speaking, this doesn't make sense. Even if Lord Li Tian wants to set up obstacles for us, he won't keep doing it. I guess we're not the only ones who have encountered the same situation today. What will they choose? Li Shenhao said, they will probably split up and meet in the nearest large camp in the wilderness. Pan Ying's eyes immediately lit up. So, we are actually close to some unknown large-scale camp in the wilderness. In short, the difficulty of the trial can't possibly kill us right from the start. After we've seen the fake wilderness camp, the deception, and the sea beast fortress, we should at least be given some time to breathe. Bai Ran nodded, that should be the case. Hence, it's very likely that we'll have to split up. Then, he used his own method to find the camp in the wilderness. If nothing unexpected happens, perhaps Lord Blazing Heaven is waiting for us in the camp. They were not stupid. Han Fei merely gave them a hint, and they soon figured out Pan Litian's thoughts. The reason why they were so sure was naturally because among the first batch of people to leave, who didn't have a big shot in their team. Any random disciple of a large clan would at least have a few life-saving treasures bestowed by the elders of their clan. As a result, even if the powerhouses of the sea monster fortress went to look for them one by one, they would only be able to snatch a portion of the resources. They couldn't snatch the majority of the resources, nor did they dare to do so. The 5 of them split up. Han Fei didn't care about it at all. As a heaven-opening state powerhouse, he had to travel with a few pioneer sea state cultivators every day. After Han Fei and the others split up. On the octopus sea monster's head, the man in the middle was observing the stars. Behind him, someone said, "Boss, this energy crystal is good stuff. But don't we have too little of it? It's obvious that those kids are wealthier than the previous group." The middle-aged man shook his head slightly. They are also much more dangerous than the previous group. Neither of those 2 girls is easy to deal with. She said she could take out an Emperor-level protection jade slip. Do you believe it? The man behind him shook his head. No. How can an Emperor-level protection jade slip be something that mortals can get? No matter how high its status is, it won't be easy for it to get an Emperor-level protection jade slip, right? Humph. Stupid. From that girl's tone and attitude, you should be able to tell that she is used to living a comfortable life. She looked at us as if we were servants, without the slightest respect. Or rather, none of the 5 of them behaved cautiously when facing us. This meant that the identities of those people were most likely extraordinary. Forget it, let's look for the next group. And behind the man in the middle, another man said, "Boss, do you think there will be people following and protecting these heavenly talents? After all, it's not difficult for a strong master to hide his star seat." The middle-aged man said, "I don't think so. So many people are going to participate in the Divine Capital Dynasty's grand competition of 10,000 years. There will be many difficulties and obstacles on the way. Which family's expert would have nothing better to do than to protect a few sea expansion brats all day long? Besides, we are just a small sea monster fortress. How can we be worthy of the strong master's attention?" While talking, the middle-aged man suddenly smiled. Smart, those boys just now separated. 2 hours later. In the void, a big octopus was wandering. Suddenly, the big octopus made an emergency stop. It stretched out its tentacles, tore the void open, and appeared in the outside world. Then, the middle-aged man appeared on the octopus's head. There were a total of 7 heaven-opening realm masters who came out with him. At this moment, these people all looked solemn. They didn't expect that they would be stopped. To think that someone would actually be able to find them in this vast wilderness. This was simply unimaginable. In front of them was a man wearing a mask. Next to the man, there was a strong master covered in a black robe. The middle-aged man said, "Your Excellency, do you have a grudge against our small sea monster fortress?" Han Fei said in a gloomy voice, "No." The middle-aged man said, "Since there is no grudge, why did you stop us?" Han Fei grinned. "Do I need a reason?" The middle-aged man's heart sank. He knew that they were a small sea monster fortress, but he still dared to rob them. This meant that he was very confident. And in this remote wilderness, why would there be such a strong existence? It could only mean one thing, that those people who came out of the chaotic wasteland must have a strong master behind them. This was beyond the middle-aged man's expectation. The middle-aged man's face changed slightly. Some juniors were robbed, and you can't sit still. Are you going to fight your way out of this vast wilderness? What's the use of sending such seedlings to the divine capital dynasty? Han Fei smiled wickedly. You rob your own, I rob mine. The only thing you should be thankful for is that you didn't try to kill them. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you calmly here. Now, either give me 100,000 kilometers of resources, or you don't need to exist anymore. The so-called 100,000 kilometers of resources, as the name suggested, naturally referred to resources spanning 100,000 kilometers. The purpose was obviously to fill the origin sea. Since it was to fill the origin sea, there must be earth vein spring water, ultra-quality spiritual stones, various mineral deposits, chaotic qi, and immortal spiritual qi. Although these resources were not much for the current Han Fei, for ordinary sea expansion realm experts, this was a huge number. Many experts who had just entered the heaven opening realm didn't have so many origin seas. Many people might not be able to save so many resources in thousands of years, but Han Fei casually asked for them. How could the middle-aged man agree? Under the middle-aged man, the octopus was furious. Where did this lunatic come from? How dare you fucking ask for 100,000 kilometers of resources? Han Fei grinned. Can't you afford it, or do you want me to take action? The middle-aged man looked uncertain. On the one hand, he didn't know what to do with Han Fei, and on the other hand, he couldn't give him these resources. This was tens of thousands of kilometers more than all the resources in this sea monster fortress. The middle-aged man slowly closed his eyes and nodded slightly, still thinking about the problem. But only he knew that he was looking at the star sea. However, the closest star to him didn't seem to be bright enough. Except for this heart, he didn't see the existence of a second star. This meant that the black-robed man probably hid his natal star. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for the star sea to not show up at all. After a while, the middle-aged man slightly smiled. I was almost fooled by you. Although your natal star is bright, it hasn't turned into a star. And the one next to you should be a puppet, right? Han Fei suddenly smiled. TSK, your guess is very correct. But, are you going to give it to me or not? The middle-aged man sneered, and with a thought, the 7 heaven-opening state powerhouses plus the other 8 immediately surrounded Han Fei. The middle-aged man shouted, we want resources. I don't know if you are qualified. Han Fei smiled, and he didn't allow the blood-killing puppet to make a move. As for himself, he suddenly rushed out. Han Fei fought against 8 enemies alone, punching out and swinging his soul knife. Bam, 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 clang, clang, clang. This battle lasted for nearly half an hour. Even the middle-aged man was a little horrified. He couldn't fight anymore, but they didn't understand why Han Fei could still fight. Wasn't he tired? He hadn't turned into a star yet. Someone was shocked. Boss, he is using us to practice. He hasn't even turned into a star yet. Boss, this kid is too strong, so strong that he's almost inhuman. Boss, this kid's physique is simply invincible. We can't break his defense. Boss, we are forced to fight him. Hurry up and think of a way. The middle-aged man was shocked. He hasn't turned into a star yet, but he's already so strong. When his star bead burst out with power, Han Fei suddenly looked back, and in an instant, many kinds of Taoist auras gathered on his fingertips. Bam! 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 Han Fei was sent flying back more than 30,000 kilometers in an instant. Wherever Han Fei passed, the void was full of cracks, and a line of flames opened the connection between the endless void and reality. For a moment, the people besieging Han Fei were overjoyed. Ha! How dare you rob our sea beast fortress? Humph! You overestimate yourself. You're courting death. You haven't even turned into a star yet and you dare to fight against 8 enemies. I guess you are also a heavenly talent going to participate in the 10,000 years competition, right? Leave behind the resources and we might let you live. Tisk, tisk. Just when those people were ecstatic, a lazy voice suddenly floated over from a distance. Interesting, the power bursting out of your star bead is really weak. Are you reluctant to waste the resources in your origin sea? Chapter 2246. How is this possible? The middle-aged man probably guessed that Han Fei wouldn't die, because he was a freak who could fight against 8 heaven-opening state powerhouses. From the very beginning, they knew that anyone who dared to participate in the 10,000-year competition of the heaven-opening state couldn't be weak. But at this moment, the combat power that Han Fei showed subverted their imagination. This made them realize the difference between mortals and heavenly talents. Although the power that this middle-aged man released from his origin sea was only 5%, it was still a terrifyingly astronomical number. Han Fei said, comparatively speaking, you're not smart. Although I may ask for more, you should at least bargain with me. Do you think that you can kill me just because you have more people or turn into stars? Who gave you such an unrealistic idea? In a flash, Han Fei's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye, and the void was twisted. The middle-aged man was horrified. Oh no, it's faster than light. Retreat, retreat, puff. Someone didn't have time to react, only feeling that the depths of his divine soul was penetrated. At the moment he exploded, he thought, I'm a heaven-opening state, I can resurrect, and as long as I resurrect, I'll immediately surrender and pay. However, this person didn't know that his natal mark had been destroyed by Han Fei, and there was no possibility for him to resurrect. Bam! Bam! After killing 3 heaven-opening state powerhouses in a row and killing one of them, the octopus roared and wanted to fight to the death with the demon condensing pearl. Han Fei appeared in front of them again. The middle-aged man was a little surprised that Han Fei didn't continue to attack, but no matter what the reason was, he hurriedly said, if you want resources, I'll give them to you. Han Fei smiled. That's right. Harmony breeds wealth. Why do we have to fight and kill? The middle-aged man was horrified. He had always been a hunter, but when facing a real powerhouse, he had no power to resist at all. This person's strength made him feel unprecedented fear. Is this the heavenly talent participating in the 10,000-year competition? The middle-aged man had never met such a person in his life. You're already so strong before turning into a star. How strong will you be after turning into a star? Han Fei didn't intend to kill these people, because these people also spared their lives just now. Whether it was out of fear or other reasons, at least they did it. The reason why he wanted to get it back was that he had been robbed for no reason. He was a dignified Ren Huang. He could give away money and be the god of wealth, but he absolutely could not be robbed. That would make him lose face. In the end, the middle-aged man only collected 90,000 kilometers of resources. Of course, these resources were not a lot for Han Fei. The further one advanced in the heaven-opening realm, the more astronomical the amount of resources needed. It was already beyond Han Fei's expectation that this small sea monster fortress could provide him with resources of 110,000 kilometers. At this moment, Han Fei stood on the head of the big octopus and said lightly, "Take out your sea map." The middle-aged man didn't dare to delay, and he immediately took out a jade bamboo strip. Friend, this sea area map covers 2 large wanderer camps, and it spans half a light year of the sea. It's the only sea area map I have that I can show you. Han Fei scanned with his perception. On this sea map, there were indeed 2 large wanderer camps, one of which was Han Fei's previous goal, the magic Moonlight City. Among them, it covered 1,009 islands, 117 ordinary wilderness camps, 203 large wanderer ships, 58 sea monster fortresses, and 1 mobile castle. Among them, the wanderer ships, the sea monster fortresses, and the mobile castle didn't have a fixed location. They could be anywhere in this sea area. This distance of a light year was equivalent to their territory. However, Han Fei still felt that this distance of half a light year was a bit too much. Even though he had mastered the speed of light, it was only 3 times the speed of light. It would take at least more than 2 months to cross such a sea area. If it were an ordinary sea-opening realm cultivator, even if they traveled at the speed of light, it would take them half a year. But how could an ordinary sea-opening realm cultivator travel so fast? This meant that it might take most people 3 to 5 years to cross such a sea area. And among them, there was a large wanderer camp, which was only about 8 days away from his current position at the speed of light. Han Fei immediately understood. It seemed that this place should be the first battle of this batch of trial participants in the chaotic wasteland. According to the sea map that Han Fei had, there were more than 160 islands and 23 ordinary wanderer camps on the way from the chaotic wasteland to that wanderer camp. Thinking about it, there were many places like Fantasy Island in this sea region. Han Fei couldn't help but think that perhaps the crisis Mo Chi mentioned was just the ruthless suppression of these guys in the chaotic wasteland by the outside world. Han Fei estimated that although all the people who came out this time were heavenly talents, but such a short distance could probably eliminate at least 1/5 of the people. Of course, behind this kind of elimination was rapid growth. Only when they were in a life-and-death situation could they grow so rapidly. It could be seen that the 150 people selected by the scavenger city were not the real participants in the 10,000-year competition. Han Fei estimated that it would be not bad if only half of them could really make it to the divine capital dynasty. Han Fei even suspected that it would be not bad if only 1/3 of them could stay. Walking down such a long sea area, how many difficulties and dangers could they really create some heaven-opening realm powerhouses? Unfortunately, such a trial was also of little significance to Han Fei. The only advantage was that Han Fei could find some people to practice with and sharpen himself. Since the wilderness was so dangerous, there must be a lot of battles. Maybe he could make it before the 10,000-year competition and reach a complete balance between his body and soul. Although he couldn't reach the extreme, he wanted to understand the power behind the way of balance. Han Fei asked, "Since you already know that I'm going to the Divine East Sea to participate in the 10,000-year competition, then do you know how far it is from here to the Divine Capital Dynasty?" The middle-aged man shook his head with a wry smile. "If you walk in a straight line, about 8 light years. Unfortunately, I've only been there once. This road is too dangerous. I was captured by the Sea Beast Fortress, detained by the mobile castle, and fought in various camps in the wilderness. Luckily, I didn't die. That's how I built this small Sea Beast Fortress." Haha, Han Fei was dumbfounded. How fucking big was the Sea Realm? Is it really that far to the Divine Capital Dynasty? Han Fei wondered how the people who came with him would react if they knew that the Divine Capital Dynasty was so far away. For the first time, Han Fei felt that 50 years was very short. If he was not careful, he might not make it in time. As for the experiences that the middle-aged man talked about, Han Fei didn't care. There were too many dangers and fortuitous encounters in life. As the saying went, the weather was unpredictable. He also wanted to see what the so-called moving castle was like. Even this sea monster fortress has a celestial transformation realm powerhouse. That mobile castle must be guarded by at least a powerhouse at the edge of the Tao-proving realm. Maybe there might even be a venerable emperor guarding it, which couldn't be underestimated. Han Fei had a lot of questions, so he grabbed the middle-aged man and planned to ask him all at once. Han Fei said, "Since you are living in the origin sea of this octopus, aren't you afraid that this octopus will suppress and obliterate you with the power of the origin sea? At that time, you will all be great tonics for him." This time, the octopus said, "I am a companion spirit." Huh? Han Fei couldn't help but look at the middle-aged man. This octopus turned out to be this man's companion spirit? Then this person was stronger than he thought. If this middle-aged man had fought desperately with him just now, he might have been able to fight with him for a while. The middle-aged man said, "Generally speaking, only one's companion spirit is the most trustworthy. And others, as long as they trust me or sign a resident oath with me, they can live in my Sea Beast Fortress. From then on, we will live and develop together as one." Han Fei was surprised. Is this possible? The weak usually attach themselves to the strong. Didn't this mean that there were actually many people in this big octopus? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, how many people are there in your settlement? The middle-aged man could only respond, about 80,000 people, but not many of them are above the Pioneer Sea realm. However, there aren't many of them above sea expansion. Each time they go out to fight, they can only send out experts. That way, they can display their strength. Han Fei had a rough idea. No wonder it was called a sea beast fortress. It turned out that there were more than 80,000 people living in this octopus. It was no wonder that the middle-aged man did not dare to accept the challenge. If things went wrong, he would not be the only one to die. But this was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. If he killed a Pioneer Sea realm cultivator, the strength of this middle-aged man's sea beast fortress would be greatly reduced. It couldn't be helped. Why didn't you listen to me just now? Wouldn't it be better if you paid earlier? Han Fei said, you can go. Just continue hunting the way you should be hunting. Not everyone can find your location like I can, and not everyone can fight 10 people at once. Today, as long as you dare, I will rob you soon. This is a trial, and the big shots won't care. The big octopus and the middle-aged man had the same idea. They bid farewell to Han Fei respectfully and then quickly fled. It wasn't until they ran far away that they felt horrified. They felt that it was that person's mercy that they could survive this time. The big octopus said, maybe it's the first time this person has left the chaotic wasteland and doesn't know how dangerous the wilderness is. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would be dead. And the middle-aged man also nodded and said, he's too strong. He must be a peerless master cultivated by a super force in the chaotic wasteland. God knows how this kind of person found us. Letting the big octopus go, Han Fei put the resources back in the Origin Sea, but he didn't choose to hurry on his way, but cultivated in the nearby Origin Sea. For a normal person, it would take at least a month or even 2 months before they could sense the nearest large wilderness camp. In these 2 months, he might as well cultivate in the Origin Sea. Chapter 2247. Han Fei thought that he might not be able to defeat the sea monster hunting fortress alone, so he would need to use the blood demon sword. However, it turned out that he had overestimated the star transformation stage powerhouse. It was also this overestimation that made Han Fei realize that not all star transformation stage powerhouses were so powerful. Perhaps the ones he encountered at the beginning were extremely powerful guys like Qiu Shouzang and En Taiping. He thought that if he faced the blow of those 2 star beads, he would have to reverse time, or he would be dead. However, after taking the blow from this middle-aged man, Han Fei found that he could still resist it. He was just sent flying 30,000 kilometers away. Although his internal organs were shaken, the injuries were minor. It could be seen that this middle-aged man's sea of origin was not big, and his strength after turning into a star was not that great. Of course, this was only relative to himself. If it were someone else, it might be a different matter. Therefore, Han Fei decided not to use the blood demon sword for the time being. Unless it was a last resort, there was no need to use it at all. A month later, Han Fei came out of the star sea quagmire. It was almost time, so he went straight to the magic Moonlight City. Han Fei's speed was very fast. In order to experience the feeling of faster than the speed of light, Han Fei rushed all the way. The void was distorted, and many creatures along the way didn't even know that someone was flying over their heads. Originally, it would take at least 2 months for an ordinary Pioneer Sea realm cultivator to travel this distance, but it only took Han Fei 7 days. It was a pity that the kinetic energy required to go faster than the speed of light required a very deep mastery of the Tao. Otherwise, Han Fei might be faster. Of course, in addition, he was also worried that his natal star was too dazzling, so he slowed down later. Hundreds of millions of kilometers away from the magic Moonlight City, the void around Han Fei returned to normal, and he murmured, still not good. The consumption is too great. Fortunately, I can partially fuse with the Tao. Otherwise, it would be difficult to maintain such a long flight at the speed of light. Another day passed. Han Fei finally crossed a rich sea area. The construction of the city would also be on a relatively rich land. However, it couldn't be too close to the rich land. Otherwise, if there were a few fights, these places would be completely destroyed. Han Fei passed by a submarine jungle and a coral sea, then a sea bamboo forest and a vine sea, and finally appeared above the deep sea area. The deep sea region, as the name suggested, was too deep, so the surrounding environment was not very good. As soon as Han Fei entered this place, he found that something was wrong. The reason for that was because there seemed to be something wrong with the deep sea. He scanned the area with his perception but did not discover many living beings. Just when Han Fei was about to move on, he suddenly turned sideways and reached out to grab the air. Bang! Although he didn't see anything, Han Fei still crushed something in an instant. After the invisible thing collapsed, it turned into a milky white brilliance and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Han Fei frowned slightly. This was the first time that he had encountered such a situation. These invisible creatures were very weak and could be crushed with a pinch, but he couldn't see them at all. That was a bit strange. After killing this creature, Han Fei attacked again in his mind, but this time, he didn't kill this invisible creature. Instead, he suppressed it with the aura of the Great Path. Beside him, there seemed to be many formless living beings charging at him. Han Fei didn't care. With a thought, the seawater around him turned into blades, stirred the void, and instantly minced those invisible creatures into pieces. And in his eyes, information emerged at this moment. Name a moon snake. Introduction: a kind of exotic snake that can devour the essence of moonlight. The moon snake has an invisible body that can't be seen in the daytime and can be vaguely seen at night. The snake is fast, strong, and has suckers on its body. Once entangled, it will turn into a spot of moonlight. It can't be absorbed unless it is fed with blood. At night, the moonlight can be preserved. Absorbing the moonlight can cleanse the flesh and strengthen the body. Level 89 Quality Exotic Realm Half King. It contains chaotic energy greater than 176 wisps. The battle skills Blood Melt, Strangulation. Collectible. A moonlight can only be collected at night. Han Fei was amazed that this moon snake, which was only in the Half King realm, could hide from his eyes in the daytime. If it was a moon snake in the same realm as him, wouldn't it have an advantage? Puff, puff, puff. Countless moon snakes rushed at Han Fei, but they were all annihilated halfway. However, since they were high-level creatures, they weren't stupid, and they couldn't just come here to die like idiots. Therefore, when Han Fei sensed the movement at the bottom of the sea, he found that these ordinary moon snakes began to retreat quickly and no longer attacked. However, a stronger threat was coming. Han Fei felt a little threatened. Because his strength was suppressed, the moon snake that came was only in the Pioneer Sea realm, but Han Fei felt a little threatened. Bam! Then, he saw his saber formation being pierced through, and waves surged down. Han Fei simply closed his eyes, and the law of gravity instantly crushed down. He didn't need to see the moon snake. As long as he felt the force field of the moon snake, Han Fei could roughly imagine the shape of the moon snake in his mind. As soon as the shape appeared, the moon snake was about to drill at him. With a clink, Han Fei quickly pulled out his long knife, and a large pale yellow halo and a milky white crystal flashed away. Humph! After killing this moon snake, Han Fei took advantage of the short time to enter the Origin Sea. After calculating the time of nightfall, Han Fei came out again and started the slaughter mode. In just 6 hours, Han Fei killed 100,000 moon snakes, 29 of which were at the Pioneer Sea state, and 2 of which were at the Heaven Opening state. The moonlight essence and moonlight crystals he harvested would slowly gather into a pale yellow mist at night. As long as he collected them well, they would not dissipate. The disadvantage was that this thing must be sealed in darkness and couldn't be exposed to light. Once it was exposed to light, it would dissipate, whether it was in a bottle or somewhere else. Therefore, moonlight essence could only be used at night or in the dark. Han Fei didn't know the effect of this moonlight essence. Anyway, After he got it, he took a part of it. This moonlight essence could actually promote the growth of the golden jade essence. It was like a supplementary drug that could accelerate the growth of the golden jade essence, just like drugs that could promote digestion and absorption. Although it couldn't directly improve and temper his physique, this supplementary effect could make the effect better. As for how much better, Han Fei didn't know. Maybe about 30% to 50%. Anyway, it was a good thing. Of course, moon snakes produced not only moonlight essence but also moonlight crystals, but this thing would only be produced in the Pioneer Sea realm and the Heaven Opening realm. The effect was naturally much better than the misty moonlight essence. However, this thing was also rare. If he wanted to help him refine all the golden jade essence, only God knew how much would be needed. Han Fei didn't have time to cultivate here slowly, so he didn't care about collecting moonlight essence for the time being. At midnight, Han Fei was actually very close to the magic Moonlight City. He wanted to collect moonlight essence along the way and arrive at the Moonlight City before dawn. But in the middle of the night, he happened to meet a 6-person team led by a heaven-opening realm who was collecting moonlight essence. Among these 6 people, the aura of the heaven-opening realm was not very stable, indicating that he had just opened the sky not long ago. As for the others, 2 of them should have reached the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm, but the remaining 3 hadn't reached the peak yet. In Han Fei's view, this team was naturally not strong. But relatively speaking, it was a team led by a heaven-opening realm, so it wasn't bad. At this moment, this 6-person team stood in front of Han Fei. Han Fei frowned slightly. "Guys, what's the meaning of this?" The leading heaven-opening state powerhouse looked at Han Fei solemnly with a gloomy face. Then, without even saying a word, he directly rushed at Han Fei. Huh? Han Fei was puzzled. Is there something wrong with this person's head? In the blink of an eye, Han Fei activated the draw technique, and the terrifying knife Dao actually pushed back the heaven-opening realm powerhouse. At this moment, the 5 Pioneer Sea realm powerhouses also rushed at him. How could Han Fei show mercy? With a flip of his hand, he pulled out a knife from the void, and a powerhouse at the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm who rushed at the front suddenly exploded. The knife wave and tide collided, and 2 humanoid powerhouses who were not at the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm were smashed by the knife light. It was just a confrontation, but 3 of the 6-person team died, and they were really dead. The expression of the heaven-opening realm powerhouse changed drastically, and then the eyes of the heaven-opening realm powerhouse turned red. Someone shouted, "Bastard, I'm going to kill you invaders." Huh? Is there a problem? Han Fei frowned. These people knew that he was an invader. Moreover, from the very beginning, these people had been looking at him with hatred in their eyes. When they attacked him, they had attacked with all their strength and carried boundless anger. Obviously, there was an inside story. Were they forced to attack me? Han Fei broke out his extreme speed and directly got rid of the 3 people. And the powerhouse who had just opened the sky barely managed to catch up with him at his extreme speed for a while, but he failed to catch up. After all, not everyone could master so many profound things as soon as they opened the sky. This person obviously hadn't fully understood the power of the heaven-opening realm. However, half an hour later, he encountered the second group of people who chased him, and there was also a heaven-opening realm powerhouse chasing him. But this time, Han Fei didn't attack them. These people were just forced to attack him. If he really attacked them, it would be an unfair victory, and there was no need to slaughter others at will. Another half an hour later, Han Fei saw an island, and in his perception, he saw a person. Who else could that person be but Pan Litian? Chapter 22:48. When Han Fei saw Pan Litian, he understood what had happened during this period of time. Just as they speculated when they parted ways, everything was a trial set up by Pan Litian. Or rather, they were not the ones who set up the trial, they were just using it. When Han Fei arrived on the island, he saluted Pan Litian. "Greetings, Master Li Tian." Pan Litian nodded slightly. "Not bad. You're the 37th to arrive. Since you're here, go to the camp and wait. Pan Litian's so-called camp was in the forest not far away. Han Fei glanced around and saw Bai Ranran, who had arrived a long time ago. Apart from Bai Ranran, Tian Hong and Li Shinhao had also arrived. Pan Ning was the only one who had not arrived yet. The speed of these people was much faster than he had imagined. Han Fei thought that Bai Ranran and Tian Hong might be here, but he did not expect Li Shinhao to be here too. It seemed that this fatty was much smarter and more powerful than he had imagined. Han Fei strode over, and Li Shinhao hurried to greet him. Brother Yi, you're here too. Did you encounter any difficulties on the way? Han Fei thought to himself, I didn't encounter any difficulties. After all, he only needed to go straight to the demonic moon city after obtaining an accurate and detailed sea map. But since Li Shinhao had asked, Han Fei could only answer casually, just a little trouble. Li Shinhao immediately flattered him with a smile, that won't be a problem for you, Brother Yi. Brother Yi, you guessed it right back then. That sea monster fortress indeed relies on the sea of stars to determine our position. As for our journey, it really was planned in advance. Only the Dream Island wasn't a trial for us. Everything that happened later was part of Master Li Tian's plan. The Dream Island wasn't. Han Fei was slightly confused. It was clearly a trial field. Although he did not know why the people of the primordial city were there, it was obviously one of the trials. Li Shinhao said with a smile, Brother Yi, actually, we ran in the wrong direction at the beginning. Do you remember the wilderness camp outside of the Dream Island? Han Fei asked, the ascetics camp? Yes, that's the place. That's our scavenger city's initial trial ground. It's just that we went the wrong way at the beginning. Maybe we went to one of the training grounds in Primordial City, and then we somehow treated them as a training ground. Han Fei, seeing Han Fei's speechless expression, Li Shinhao said with a smile, I also just learned that this Demon Moon City is actually a camp set by the City of Scavengers in the outside world. What? This time, Han Fei was really shocked. Was the Demon Moon City created by the Scavenger City? What was going on? Wasn't this supposed to be a group of cities formed by the forces of the wilderness? Han Fei immediately scanned the area with his perception. This island was more than 60,000 kilometers long, and there were a lot of experts. When he scanned with the perception of the Pioneer Sea realm, many people immediately resisted. But even so, Han Fei still saw countless weird species on this island. Among them, there were several hundred types of humanoid creatures in the ocean, as well as various types of demon plants, birds, insects, and mermaids. Han Fei felt as if he had walked into the City of Wanderers. It was just that this camp was much more shabby than the City of Wanderers. Han Fei frowned, and he immediately thought of something. This Demon Moon City is on our side, then. Han Fei was about to say another city, but he felt that he should know about the other city. That city seemed to be a little farther away. Where did he know about the other city? Seeing Bai Ranran looking at him, Han Fei immediately thought of something. Does the Primordial City and the City of Wanderers also have a camp outside? Li Shinhao immediately smiled and said, Brother Yi, you're really smart. Primordial City did indeed have a large camp, and it was called the Guardian Camp. However, the Guardian Camp is a little far from us. I think they also have to go through such a long journey like us. As for the City of Wanderers, there doesn't seem to be a camp here. Han Fei thought to himself, this is very in line with the personality of the City of Wanderers. As wanderers, they are all experienced in battles. Besides, the City of Wanderers has military service, and they have to be passionate about protecting their homeland from invasion. Therefore, those who grow up will go to places like graveyards and battlefields. Their experience is far richer than that of teams like the Scavenger City and the Primordial City, which are mixed with a large number of family descendants. Han Fei didn't care about this and didn't ask much. Instead, he casually sat cross-legged and said indifferently, let's cultivate. Li Shinhao's mood didn't change at all because of Han Fei's indifferent attitude. This person didn't seem to be a descendant of a big family at all, and he was full of flattery. Without Pan Litian's permission, Han Fei and the others couldn't rashly go to the Demon Moon City. After all, they were all true powerhouses. Although the Demon Moon City was the camp of the scavenger city in the wilderness, it was also managed as a city, and the races here were complicated. The sudden influx of so many experts was bound to have a certain impact on the people of the Demon Moon City. Moreover, in order to give Han Fei and the others a final trial, Pan Litian forced the experts of the Demon Moon City to ambush them outside. Therefore, the few groups of people who intercepted Han Fei earlier hated him very much. Han Fei could roughly guess the reason. The people from the scavenger city were not weak, and it was too difficult for them to take down these geniuses. On the other hand, it was much easier for these geniuses to attack them. As such, the last trial outside Demon Moon City would definitely result in the death of many experts from Demon Moon City. It would be strange if they didn't hate him. About 7 days after Han Fei arrived, experts from the scavenger city arrived in the Demon Moon City one after another. Pan only arrived on the 9th day after Han Fei. When Pan arrived, she was in a more difficult situation. She was a young lady from a big family who had never suffered much. She was a true genius. Although she was strong, she didn't know much about the outside world. When Pan saw Pan Litian from afar, she immediately shouted, "Grandpa, this is really just a simple trial. Grandpa, you've made me suffer so much, Grandpa." "Shut up." Pan Litian's face darkened. "Everyone came here like this, but you can't. If you don't experience the dangers of the world, you won't even be able to make it to the divine capital dynasty. What's there to talk about in the 10,000 years competition?" Pan was immediately silenced. She had a belly full of grievances, but she didn't know who to talk to. Then, Pan looked at Han Fei and the others. Pan Ying's face immediately turned red, and she felt a little uncomfortable. It was one thing for Bai Ranran, Tian Hong, and Yi Fenglu to be ahead of her, but what about Li Shenhao? Yi Fenglu even cooperated with Bai Ranran to kill a heaven-opening expert. What about Li Shenhao? At that time, he was sleeping on the island of dreams just like her, but he was actually able to walk in front of her. She immediately felt uncomfortable. Pan Litian seemed to know what his granddaughter was thinking. He snorted coldly. "Girl, don't underestimate anyone. Li Shenhao, whom you look down on, arrived 1 day earlier than Yi Fenglu. Today is the 10th day. Pan. Half a month later. A total of 98 people came to the Demon Moon Island. It had been almost half a year since they left the wasteland. Another 3 days passed. When 127 people came to the Demon Moon Island, Pan Litian could not wait anymore. Those who did not arrive today, whether they were alive or dead, were all eliminated. Pan Litian actually thought it was not bad. He initially planned to have 110 people arrive within the time he had set. However, it seemed like this batch of people was of good quality. There were 127 of them. However, what Pan Litian did not know was that a small sea monster fortress in the wilderness was almost destroyed. If that was not the case, the outcome might have been similar to what he had expected. At this moment, everyone stood before Pan Litian. The latter said, "I believe that all of you must have experienced some setbacks or narrowly escaped death during this period of time. In just half a year, 23 people have been eliminated from a team of 150 people. Do you know what it means to call yourselves geniuses?" Most of them fell silent. They did not expect the journey to be so difficult. Many of them still had some lingering fear in their hearts. Many times, their choices had almost cost them their lives. Pan Litian shouted, "It's only half a year's journey. Less than 100 of you made it to the divine capital dynasty. In the end, 23 of you were eliminated. Do you still think you're geniuses? Do you still think you're invincible among your peers? What's there to be proud of?" Han Fei did not feel anything from Pan Litian's words. The living beings in the wilderness sought survival, but the 10,000 scale tribe's geniuses sought a path. They did not expect to die here. Comparing the two, Han Fei felt that it was already beyond his expectations that so many people had made it here. Pan Litian said, Now, I can tell you that if it weren't for the fact that I've deliberately set up this path, it would have been a miracle for 100 of you to make it here today. After a pause, Pan Litian smirked. The sovereigns who accompanied me back then have already traveled a long distance. I've waited for you for some time to tell you that this path is not an easy one. From today onward, you'll have to walk on your own for the rest of the journey. I'll let you know that no living being is trustworthy in the wilderness. I'll give you a piece of advice. If you encounter a powerhouse, run. If you encounter a weakling, kill. If you follow my advice, you might be able to keep yourself alive. At this moment, Panning said, Grandpa. Lord Blazing Heaven, can we enter Devil Moon City? Pan Ying's first thought was to obtain the sea chart. Although she had gone through many hardships, she realized that she was lacking. Her grandfather would not follow them all the way, so the sea chart was crucial. In the vast wilderness, if one wanted to obtain a sea chart, it meant that one would have to go through many dangers. Otherwise, who would give the sea chart to them? Were they not memorized by the powerhouses? That's right. Lord Blazing Heaven, can we enter Devil Moon Town? If we can enter the town, we'll be able to exchange for resources. The crowd began to discuss among themselves. Most of them were disciples from the major clans. However, Pan Litian laughed savagely. No. Chapter 2249. The wilderness was boundless, but it was by no means a land devoid of resources. The vast sea here had raised countless strong masters. Except for the border areas near the barbaric abyss, the boundless mining area, the Sea of Gods and Demons, and the Ghost Strait, where there were fewer strong masters, there were many other places in the wilderness. Ever since he mastered the speed of light, Han Fei was no longer interested in traveling. He had 50 years, which was more than enough for him to squander in the wilderness. Originally, he thought it would take him at least hundreds of years to stabilize his cultivation that he had forcibly increased. But now, in the wilderness, where strong masters were everywhere, there were whetstones that could sharpen his skills. At this moment, in the raging sea, a huge black octopus was quickly tearing the void, leaving some strange grayish-black smoke traces in the void. Behind this big octopus, a giant whale was flying in the sky, and from the mouth of the giant whale, 4 heaven-opening state masters dashed out. Zhang Daqian, don't run if you have the guts. You and I will not run today. And on the back of the octopus, a voice snickered. Okay, I'll listen to you. I won't run. Swish. In fact, the big octopus under Han Fei's feet was Zhang Daqian's clone. He hadn't opened the sky in the first place, so he couldn't run anymore. Because the sea monster fortress following him was a heaven-opening state whale. It was unnecessary for him to fight a protracted battle, and he couldn't beat the other one. So, Han Fei simply stopped. Han Fei stepped in the void, holding a long knife, and pointed it behind him. I just robbed some of your members, didn't I? Do you have to be so calculative? You've been chasing me for almost half a month. The leader was a valiant woman, who scolded him with a cold face. You robbed the members of my giant whale fortress 17 times in a row, and you still dare to ask me not to chase you? You're too shameless. Han Fei snickered. In the wilderness, the strong prey on the weak. Zhou Jingjing, I don't understand what you're saying. Come and rob me if you can. Come on, I'll give you a chance today. Beat me, and I'll give back the resources you robbed. With that, Han Fei roared and rushed up. Immediately, Zhou Jingjing and the others' faces changed slightly. They dared to chase Han Fei, but they had to be careful when fighting Han Fei head-on. Because Han Fei was too strong. It only took them half a month to catch up from having the upper hand at the beginning to being at a disadvantage. This time, Han Fei caught up with them because he had a trump card. Zhou Jingjing roared, "Array!" As he spoke, the whale fortress spat out 17 or 18 peak sea expansion experts. Their main goal was to restrain Zhang Daqian's clone. The reason there were only 17 or 18 of them was because Zhang Daqian's clones were also very powerful. Ordinary sea expansion experts wouldn't even be able to endure a single blow from them. It was fortunate that Zhang Daqian was only at the peak of sea expansion. Furthermore, being surrounded, it would be very difficult for him to release any killing moves. Otherwise, Zhou Jingjing and the others wouldn't dare chase him like this. Of course, one of the main reasons why they dared to chase Han Fei was that although Han Fei claimed to have a sea monster fortress of the boundless world, his sea monster fortress didn't recruit anyone. They didn't think Han Fei was weak. Although this octopus, known as the boundless world, was only at the peak of the sea expansion realm, an octopus that could repeatedly escape from sea monsters at the heaven-opening state was fully qualified to build a sea monster fortress. It was exactly because Han Fei didn't recruit that they dared to chase him and fight him like this. At this moment, the battle had begun. Han Fei fought against the four of them alone, and the wind and clouds were raging. The four heaven-opening state cultivators tried their best to suppress Han Fei with all kinds of techniques, but to no avail. Zhou Jingjing seemed to have been used to Han Fei's ability to resist pressure. Suddenly, he roared, "Old Five, come out." Hum. A fist mark pierced the sky and went straight at Han Fei. Another person came out of the whale's mouth. Han Fei grinned. "I was wondering why you were chasing me so closely these days. It turns out that you have another helper. Did you go hunting a few days ago?" Zhou Jingjing scoffed. "Humph. Don't be arrogant. 1 against 5. Let's see how long you can last." The newcomer, Old Five, was obviously a body-tempering school and the great Tao of power. He seemed to be able to attract magnetism, but it wasn't obvious. His great Tao was probably not deep enough. Otherwise, his control of the great Tao would be quite strong. However, Han Fei punched back with the great Tao of gravity and didn't give him a chance. The punch sent him flying for nearly 1,000 kilometers. Zhou Jingjing took the opportunity to launch a spear light at Han Fei's throat. Han Fei grinned, cracked the space, and grabbed a void vortex to counter. Bam! In the blink of an eye, 3 heaven-opening state cultivators, one with a stick, one with a sword, and one with a halberd, launched fierce attacks at Han Fei one after another. Han Fei didn't suppress his strength. Zhou Jingjing and the others were actually not weak. Although he had grown too fast, his foundation was not stable, and the power he could unleash was less than 80% of his real strength. Therefore, they were evenly matched. Of course, this was under the premise that Han Fei didn't use his great Tao. Otherwise, once he did, there would be no need to fight. The 5 of them were no match for him at all. Bam! 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 The 2 sides fought for 100,000 kilometers along the way. Han Fei didn't know how many times he had been hit, but none of the 5 opponents was better than him. Someone said telepathically, "Jingjing. Why don't you just give up? This guy is thick-skinned and knows too much about the Great Tao. We can't hurt him at all." Someone said telepathically, "Jingjing, this guy can fight 5 people at once. We've offended him too much. If he really comes back to take revenge in the future, I'm afraid we won't be a match for him at all." Jingjing. On the other side, Zhang Daqian had already blown up 7 peak stage sea expansion realm cultivators. Fortunately, he hadn't been completely killed, or they would have suffered a great loss. Zhou Jingjing's qi and blood vibrated. Suddenly, he exclaimed. For the first time, he had become one with the spear and borrowed the power of the great Tao. Even Han Fei was a little surprised. This woman made a breakthrough in the battle. This was not a small breakthrough. With this spear, it wouldn't be long before he could integrate with the great Tao and understand the true meaning of this spear. It could be said that Zhou Jingjing's strength would increase by at least 30% in a very short time in the future. Someone exclaimed, "Jingjing, you made a breakthrough." Someone was overjoyed. "Ha ha ha. Good, 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 Jingjing is really a heavenly talent." However, Zhou Jingjing was not happy at all. She shouted at Han Fei, "Zhang Daqian, come again." Han Fei grinned. "Interesting. Then let me see how strong you are after the breakthrough." Suddenly, Han Fei frowned and subconsciously felt a trace of threat. This threat, of course, couldn't come from Zhou Jingjing. Even if Zhou Jingjing's strength doubled, she wouldn't be a threat to him. So Han Fei glanced at the void. Rip! The void was torn apart, and with a swish, 5 giant crabs rushed out of the void from 5 directions one after another, surrounding Han Fei and the others. Immediately, the sea area where they were was sealed, because 18 heaven-opening realm experts came out from the opposite side at once. Moreover, among all the heaven-opening realm experts, there was a leader and 5 sub-leaders. Crab King City. Jingjing. At this moment, the other emperors of the giant whale fortress also looked extremely gloomy. They exchanged glances, and one of them said, "Jingjing, later, the 3 of us will try to open a gap. You have to take the opportunity to leave." Zhou Jingjing's face changed slightly. "No. Even if I surrender, I can't abandon you." Someone scolded her via voice transmission, "Don't you know what the people of the Crab King City are like? These people have no bottom line. Except for some special heavenly talents, they won't easily take in strong masters. Even if they take in strong masters, they will take in your soul and essence blood. If you really give them to them, you might as well die." Zhou Jingjing was silent. She had forgotten about the battle with Han Fei. This was her mistake. They had often fought with Zhang Daqian recently. She must have been exposed for too long to be discovered by the people of the Crab King City's mobile castle. Although not all the people of the Crab King City had come, this was not something that their small giant whale fortress and Zhang Daqian could resist at all. "No, there is another way." Suddenly, Zhou Jingjing raised her head, looked at the Crab King City powerhouse, and shouted loudly, "I am Zhou Jingjing, the owner of the giant whale fortress. I became a king at 4,000 years old, opened the sky at 7,000 years old, and now I am 9,000 years old. Even in the wilderness, I am a heavenly talent, oh. So." The young-looking powerhouse on the opposite side showed a faint smile. "Sounds good. So." However, when Zhou Jingjing said this, the faces of the other 3 emperors of the giant whale fortress changed drastically. They seemed to know what Zhou Jingjing was going to do. Zhou Jingjing took a deep breath and then raised her voice. "I will join your Crab King City, but please let go of the others here, including him." Zhou Jingjing pointed at Han Fei. Han Fei was not surprised. "Is this auntie stupid? I fucking robbed you 17 times, and you still want to help me?" However, Han Fei soon sensed the difference and smiled in his heart. "Good heavens, you're really thoughtful." Zhou Jingjing took a deep look at Han Fei. Han Fei's strength was actually very strong, which amazed her. And she knew that although Han Fei robbed them 17 times, he didn't kill anyone. This meant that although Han Fei robbed, he was not a bloodthirsty person. If she saved his life, if he was grateful, he might accept others. Han Fei naturally thought of this, but he was speechless. Where did this auntie get her confidence from? "Ha ha ha." Sure enough, the leader of the Crab King City laughed. "Who do you think you are? Even if my Crab King City accepts someone, it will be him. Your giant whale fortress has chased this person more than once, hasn't it? You've 5 times. The 5 emperors failed to capture one person 5 times. Who do you think I should accept?" Zhou Jingjing said, "I have a heaven-opening state companion spirit, and I have a population of 110,000. He has nothing." "Oh." The leader narrowed his eyes slightly, thought for a while, and smiled slightly. TSK, then both of you can join my Crab King City. But the others? Ha, they deserve to die." Chapter 2250. When the young leader raised his hand, the emperors surrounding him were ready to attack at any time. The leader of the Crab King City said, "Not everyone is qualified to join the Crab King City. It's true that your talents are not bad, but the wilderness is boundless, and there are countless geniuses roaming about. Yet, most of them have fallen along the way. Guess why? Because you, the leaders, don't want to see the rise of the strong." Suddenly, Han Fei, who was watching the show, interrupted the conversation between the leader of the Crab King City and Zhou Jingjing. Idiot. Han Fei smiled and looked at Zhou Jingjing as if she was an idiot. Auntie, it's really hard to imagine that you can survive in this wilderness until now. Can't you see that there might have been some room for negotiation, but when you said you have 110,000 people, this room turned into killing intent? In the wilderness, it was not the population that was important, only the population living in the sea monster fortresses was important. Because the sea monster fortresses were built by the strong, non-strong, non-elite, and non-potential, they would not be accepted at all. As a result, the population in the sea monster fortresses had huge potential, and they were the targets of competition. The wilderness was different from the chaotic wasteland. The creatures in the chaotic wasteland were all ominous creatures, but the creatures in the wilderness were all normal creatures. Plus the resources in the wilderness were very abundant, and there was enough population, which represented the hope of rising. This meant that among these people who owned the sea monster fortresses and mobile castles, it was very easy for geniuses to emerge. Which force didn't want to accept geniuses? Would they accept ordinary people? Among these people, as long as one of them had the opportunity to rise, it would be of great significance to the entire sea monster fortress. Every sea monster fortress would send many people to train along the way. If they didn't die, they would be fine. If they grew rapidly, they would be nurtured. Because everyone was doing this, there were actually quite a number of people in the Venerable Realm and those who had just entered the Pioneer Sea Realm in the wilderness. They would even often meet and fight. However, everyone abided by one rule: the strong would never easily hunt the weak. Because you didn't know what force the person you were hunting belonged to, and how strong his backing was. This was the rule of survival in the wilderness. Regardless of whether it was the sea monster fortress, the mobile castle, the wanderer camp, the island, or the ship, most of them would obey this rule. Of course, they would also gather unorganized wandering geniuses and absorb them into their population system. But relatively speaking, the campsite could not be moved frequently, which meant that the people living in the campsite could not enjoy the endless opportunities in the wilderness. So, the probability of experts being born in the campsite was relatively small. Although the population was large, it was not valued. Most of the time, many people just stayed in the camp temporarily, mostly to trade and the like. And in a very large area of the sea, a mobile fortress could control as many as thousands of camps. But apart from himself, there might not be a single sea monster fortress that he could control. Therefore, the relationship between the mobile castle and the sea monster fortress was that of the hunter and the prey. However, although hunters liked prey, they didn't like prey that were too powerful. Even though hunters valued talent and took in some of the leaders of their prey, other than the leaders, they didn't like other powerful prey. However, most hunters would not be willing to pay the price to kill them if they did not like them. But this time, the people of the Crab King City didn't want to let go of the other emperors of the giant whale fortress except Zhou Jingjing. Unfortunately, Zhou Jingjing had already revealed his trump card, and it was no longer useful to threaten the Crab King City with the population he controlled. The young man couldn't help but look at Han Fei. Interesting. You're right, but not completely right. It's not that I don't want to see the rise of other strong masters, but the rise must come from the Crab King City. The young man glanced at Han Fei. You're not bad. If you're willing to follow me, maybe you can command a fortress in the future. This young man was arrogant. However, Han Fei smiled contemptuously. Who do you think you are? How dare you ask me to follow you? Don't you ever look at yourself on the boundless sea under your feet? Don't you know what you look like? Huh? The young leader. The emperors of the Crab King City. Zhou Jingjing and the others. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Zhou Jingjing was speechless. Are you fucking stupid? Can't you tell the current situation? You can fight 1 against 5, but can you fight dozens of heaven-opening realm masters? Besides, this is a star transformation realm powerhouse. How dare you? The young man was also dumbfounded. He didn't expect that he, the young master of the Crab King City, would be scolded in this place. And in this situation where he could absolutely crush the opponent, was this guy a fucking psychopath? Suddenly, the young man's face darkened. Kid, I think you're tired of living. Since you want to die, then die. Kill him for me. He was a rare talent, but he also had the natural pride of a superior. He felt that his status was lofty, so his words were full of arrogance. As the young man spoke, the two heaven-opening realm powerhouses closest to Han Fei burst out. One refined his body, the other refined his soul, and they attacked at the same time, trying to penetrate Han Fei directly. At that moment, Han Fei seemed to be stunned, letting a spear against his chest, but he didn't even resist. Clang, the void rippled, shaking tens of thousands of miles. Zhou Jingjing's eyes, which were already wide open, widened even further. He blocked such a terrifying force just like that. Why didn't he show such tyrannical strength before? Han Fei, on the other hand, put on a devilish smile and slowly relaxed his expression. Puff! No one saw Han Fei move at all, and he had already appeared in midair. At the speed of light, a dragon roar exploded in the mind of the Soul Refinement Realm powerhouse. Bam! Everyone only saw a fist mark breaking through the void, the terrifying fist mark with boundless killing intent, as if describing its own strength. Boom! The Soul Refinement Realm powerhouse didn't walk the path of physical strength, so how could he withstand Han Fei's attack? However, he knew that he wouldn't die, because there were so many emperors watching him. Since this person was extraordinary, they certainly wouldn't stand by and watch. However, for some reason, he felt that something in the depths of his soul seemed to have broken, and then his consciousness was directly scattered. He felt that his body and mind had fallen into the sea of stars, surrounded by boundless darkness, and then, there was no then. Rumble, rumble, above the sky, cracks crisscrossed, and the sky was covered with blood, which meant that two heaven-opening state powerhouses had died. Holding a long saber with a sheath in his hand, Han Fei killed the two heaven-opening state powerhouses at lightning speed in the void, turned around in midair, and put the long saber on his shoulder. Such a small movement caused the air to ripple for thousands of miles. Han Fei chuckled. Me? I heard that you are very arrogant and want to kill me. Hiss! At that moment, everyone was stunned. Especially Zhou Jingjing and the three heaven-opening state powerhouses around him, they didn't know how to describe their feelings at all. Ah! Old Wu of the giant whale fortress opened his mouth and then realized that something was wrong. He closed his mouth and said to Zhou Jingjing and the others telepathically, "Are you kidding me? This person has been chased by the few of you 5 times?" Someone responded, "You also participated this time, but I didn't feel that he was so strong." Zhou Jingjing was also stunned. What's going on? This person is obviously not bad. At first, he was suppressed by us. How did he become so powerful all of a sudden? Besides, doesn't he use his fists? Why did he take out a saber? Why does this saber have a sheath? Zhou Jingjing and the others were not surprised. The young leader of the Crab King City and the other powerhouses were all horrified at this moment. What the hell is going on? Someone reacted first and shouted, "Not good, young master, this guy is extremely strong. I'm afraid he has been hiding his strength before. Let's attack together and suppress him." The young man also reacted and then shouted, "Okay, how dare you kill the powerhouses of the Crab King City? You're courting death. Set up the crab strangulation array." Buzz, buzz, buzz. 5 heaven-opening state big crabs seemed to intertwine with their souls and condensed into a giant crab the size of a superweapon. In addition to this, more than a dozen heaven-opening state powerhouses surrounded them and attacked one after another. The void within 100,000 kilometers was drained of spiritual energy. Han Fei sneered. "This crab is a bit interesting." With that, Han Fei's figure disappeared. It was too fast. So fast that the young powerhouse realized that something was wrong. This person's strength was beyond his imagination. He roared, "Not good, come back and protect me. This is faster than light." He is a super strong powerhouse at the late stage of the star transformation realm. What? All the heaven-opening state powerhouses were shocked at this moment. What? A super strong powerhouse at the late stage of the star transformation realm? Since when was the star transformation realm so easy? However, how could they fight against faster than light? They hadn't reached the star transformation realm yet. Even if they could barely resist faster than light, they could only resist faster than light within 3 times the speed. Otherwise, if it was too much, they wouldn't be able to react at all. Since Han Fei could see through the life mark deep in the enemy's soul, he no longer had to run into the opponent's source sea and rely on the demon purification pot to suck the opponent to death. Of course, among this group of people, there were some he couldn't see through, such as the young leader of the star transformation realm. And Han Fei didn't see the life marks of the 5 small leaders either. Han Fei knew that this meant that the other party was relatively strong. The smaller the gap between them, the more obvious it would be to hide. And the larger the gap between them, the clearer the life marks would be in his eyes. And these people gave Han Fei the feeling that they were all in the star transformation realm, or had already turned into stars. But they definitely hadn't been on the road of star transformation for a long time. If he guessed right, even if these people were weak, they wouldn't be much weaker than him. Of course, if he used his full strength, they would definitely be no match for him. BAM, 1 statue, 2 statues, 3 statues. When Han Fei killed the 3rd heaven-opening state powerhouse, the phantoms condensed by the 5 big crabs had already rushed towards Han Fei. But in the eyes of Zhou Jingjing and the others, they saw Han Fei's aura skyrocketing, and an indescribable power shrouded their hearts. Ordinary celestial transformation powerhouses, when they felt this power, immediately felt shocked and immediately retreated. Han Fei stretched out his hand and pointed, and a massive number of ownerless souls turned into a big sword, colliding with the 2 pincers. The big pincer of the crab was smashed into nothingness. But then, Han Fei had already slashed out a second sword strike, which was even more powerful than the previous one. Seeing that the crab formation seemed to be unable to resist, the young leaders shouted, "Retreat, retreat! Everyone, attack with all your strength and stop him." Han Fei had always been the kind of person who wouldn't attack others if they didn't attack him. When he robbed others, he was a bit picky. But this Crab King City was not one of them. Thinking that the powerhouses of the Crab King City should not be far away, Han Fei didn't intend to fight a protracted battle. He had to end the battle quickly. Clang! At that moment, Han Fei drew his knife and slashed the huge crab, but unfortunately, he was met with the attacks of a dozen heaven-opening state powerhouses. Even though Han Fei's knife was extremely powerful, it was still offset in the end. But these people were horrified. He was too strong. They couldn't resist him at all. In the void, Han Fei's voice echoed, "I only kill people when they try to kill me." "Hey, weren't you pretty arrogant just now? Why are you running?" Because the void here was blocked, even the people of the Crab King City couldn't run so fast. As soon as this young man saw the attacks of a dozen fucking people, he was killed by Han Fei. Of course, he realized that something was wrong. The combined strength of these people he brought could even stall a late-stage star transformation realm powerhouse for a while. However, Han Fei's outburst shattered his extravagant hope. Immediately, he shouted, "Third uncle." When a jade slip was crushed, a vast and fierce power descended. Han Fei frowned slightly. He had felt this feeling when he confronted Pan Litian before. Suddenly, Han Fei's 10,000-meter-tall avatar appeared below him. Before the young man appeared, he stretched out his hand, and the void collapsed, turning into endless knife light, directly crushing the young man. Han Fei sighed slightly. "I'm still not strong enough. I can't even kill a piece of trash. I'm too weak." Chapter 2251. Han Fei sighed for himself. Although his soul power had exceeded 5 million, his strength had also skyrocketed, and his comprehensive combat power had soared, he was still not strong enough. However, not strong enough is still not strong enough. Although this Crab King City's young master has already turned into a celestial being, when he made his move just now, this guy's first thought was to run. He brought a large group of people with him, and his first thought was to run. Realizing that he couldn't catch up, he directly called him third uncle. Good heavens, if this isn't a fucking idiot, then what is? In this day and age, being able to turn into a star didn't mean you were strong. It might be because of the accumulation of pure resources, or maybe he was just timid. But in any case, this young master of the Crab King City was already a rookie in Han Fei's eyes. As a result, he killed 7 or 8 small fries, but he didn't even kill the protagonist. How embarrassing was this? However, Han Fei's sigh spread tens of thousands of miles in the void. In the eyes of Zhou Jingjing's people, he seemed to be bragging. At this moment, Zhou Jingjing had already taken back the Sea Expansion Realm powerhouses that he had released. This was no longer a battle that a Sea Expansion Realm powerhouse could participate in. He didn't have a chance to take back his people just now because he was surrounded and didn't dare to act rashly. Who would have thought that this Zhang Daqian was so fierce that he didn't dare to attack the people of the Crab King City? In the blink of an eye, he killed 7 or 8 Sky Expansion Realm powerhouses. The young master of the Crab King City, a Celestial Transformation Realm powerhouse, was directly blown up. Although he didn't die, he was still a Celestial Transformation Realm powerhouse. He was not a cabbage that could be killed easily. Anyway, only now did Zhou Jingjing realize that this guy was just messing around with them. A dignified Celestial Transformation late-stage powerhouse, a powerhouse who could break through the speed of light, snatched a small giant whale fortress. What's the point? And he robbed it 17 times in a row. However, in any case, Zhou Jingjing felt that Han Fei had saved them. Otherwise, if they were taken away by the Crab King City, they would be in danger. However, she didn't know that Han Fei was actually trying to return the favor. Han Fei's understanding was that he went to the giant whale fortress to hone himself, but he attracted the people of the Crab King City. If the Crab King City's people had been easy to talk to, then that would have been fine. However, they had immediately demanded that he submit and kill the king of the giant whale fort. That was a bit too much. The sea monster fortress had more than just a few powerhouses. The destruction of a sea monster fortress was likely to result in the death of many ordinary people. Of course, most of them were humanoids, demonic plants, sea beasts, and other messy races, but they were still living creatures, shouldn't they? At this moment, Han Fei's phantom appeared, dazzling Zhou Jingjing and the others. They felt a sense of helplessness in their hearts, thinking that they couldn't beat him at all. On the other side, Crab King City's third uncle had appeared. He was only slightly slower than Han Fei. Perhaps because Han Fei's strength wasn't low, even if the Crab King City young master had a protective jade slip and crushed it immediately, he still couldn't catch up. If he was just an ordinary sea-opening realm expert, then he might have already died. In the void, a middle-aged burly man wearing crab armor with one hand like a giant pincer appeared. How dare you? How dare you touch my nephew? I'll kill you no matter where you run. Although he was yelling at Han Fei angrily, the middle-aged man still tore open the void with a clamp and broke the sealed void. Then he stretched out his hand and grabbed. The surrounding void moved, and the Crab King City young master quickly reassembled. At this time, Zhou Jingjing shouted, "Zhang! You, run! The Crab King City can't be too far away. Hurry up and run." Han Fei glanced at Zhou Jingjing, thinking that this man was not bad. He even knew to tell him to run. However, this time, Han Fei wasn't particularly worried. Although this Crab King City was a mobile castle, they didn't have a venerable emperor. Otherwise, if every mobile castle had a venerable emperor, how many venerable emperors would there be? Han Fei had been wandering in the wilderness for 5 years. He had been to hundreds of secret realms, mines, spiritual veins, spiritual springs, spiritual fruits, demonic plants, and so on. He didn't know how many resources he had stuffed into his origin sea. Until now, Han Fei had always felt that according to the law of conservation of energy, no matter how many things he stuffed into his origin sea, no matter whether these things could open the sea or not, they would still remain the same. However, once he returned to his original state, everything in the origin sea would be reset, but the overall energy would remain the same. He firmly believed this. Therefore, for others, this wilderness was an experience, but for Han Fei, it was a treasure trove with countless resources waiting for him to collect. Unfortunately, it was a bit slow to collect them alone. Occasionally, Han Fei would kill demons to defend justice, and occasionally he would just rob others. Of course. Han Fei spent most of his time finding people to hone himself. Han Fei had already found 7 or 8 sea monster fortresses like Zhou Jingjing's. In each group of sea monster fortresses, he fought with them for a while and then gave up. Of course. In the giant whale fortress, Han Fei was just going to hone himself for another 5 or 6 times before he left, but who knew that he would attract the Crab King city? Han Fei turned his head and glanced at them, saying, "Stay away from me." After saving his nephew, the third uncle of the Crab King city charged at Han Fei without hesitation. This man was not a heaven-opening state cultivator like Zhou Jingjing. He was obviously a super master in the late stage of the star transformation realm. At this moment, Han Fei ran the Great Tao, burst out a terrifying force, and rushed at this man at a speed faster than light. Bam! 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 Zhou Jingjing and the others ran while looking at the scene behind them. They thought that this man was a hidden late-stage star transformation supermaster, a big shot who could challenge the Crab King city. However, at the moment when the two of them fought, Zhou Jingjing was speechless to find that Han Fei was actually beaten flying. Or rather, it was simply being beaten up. If Han Fei hit someone once, the other party might have hit him 10 times. Ripples appeared in the void, waves exploded again and again, and the seabed collapsed again and again, all caused by Han Fei. The middle-aged man shouted, "You haven't turned into a star yet? How did you comprehend faster than light?" Huh? Zhou Jingjing and the others ran all the way, and when they heard the conversation behind, they were all dumbfounded. Next to Zhou Jingjing, a person was shocked. "Haven't turned into a star yet? How is that possible? You haven't turned into a star yet, but you killed a star transformation realm powerhouse with a flip of your hand? Shit, you haven't turned into a star yet, but you're still fine after being beaten for so long?" Ha ha ha. Although Han Fei was beaten violently, he sneered. "Hey! If you can't kill me today, my boundless world will fight with your Crab King city." Ha! Bam! Han Fei was knocked back more than 50,000 kilometers, his internal organs tumbling, and he coughed incessantly. However, the third uncle's face became more and more solemn. Because his power was about to run out, he didn't dare to attack with all his strength. He wanted to give his nephew time to run away and buy time for his main body, so he just beat this man violently. However, he didn't expect Han Fei's physique to be so strong. Ordinary Pioneer Sea Realm experts would be seriously injured if not killed after being bombarded by him. But this guy could resist soul attacks, and his body was even more terrifying. He felt that his body could compete with his main body. How lucky was this monster to be born? Zhang Daqian, I'll remember this. The next time I see you, it will be the day you die. Boom! This man's blow was like a star explosion, and turbid waves for 100,000 kilometers rose into the sky. Han Fei was hit by the man's last blow, which was like a falling star. He felt that all his bones were broken, but there was a crazy smile on his face. He roared, "Crab King City, wait for me." Cough, cough, the strong man disappeared, and Han Fei stabilized his body, gasping, and murmured, "So strong. This is a fucking whetstone. This is the best way to beat me." This battle lasted only a few seconds, and I've fought 10 battles with Zhou Jingjing and the others. TSK, TSK. When a heavenly awakening divine technique descended, Han Fei's injuries quickly recovered. Zhou Jingjing and the others had already run tens of millions of kilometers away from the battle range of Han Fei and the Crab King city experts. At this time, they didn't dare to neglect at all. If the people of Crab King City really arrived, they would be finished. One day later. Phew, Zhou Jingjing let out a long sigh of relief. After running at full speed for a day, no one should be able to catch up, right? Ha! Zhang Daqian is a lunatic. I can't mess with him. She felt that the battle between such strong masters might last for a while, and they wouldn't pay attention to her small giant whale fortress in a short time. But after this battle, the Crab King City will definitely search for my giant whale fortress. It seems that I have to change to a wild sea area. Zhou Jingjing stabilized her breath and began to sit cross-legged, ready to recover. Just as she sat down, before she even had time to circulate her cultivation method, she heard a voice behind her. Hey, you're leaving just like that? You don't even want to say goodbye? At that moment, Zhou Jingjing broke down. Can you fucking stop messing around? You're haunting me. Zhou Jingjing didn't know what to do and was about to collapse. She said in annoyance, Brother, fellow cultivator, when did my giant whale fortress offend you? You are a super strong master. Why do you have to make life difficult for my small giant whale fortress? Zhou Jingjing hurriedly got up and stayed away from Han Fei, looking vigilant. However, Han Fei nodded thoughtfully and said, Are you interested in hanging out with me? Chapter 2252. Follow you? Zhou Jingjing was stunned. Although she didn't know why Han Fei had been chasing them, a small giant whale fortress, she had some guesses in her heart. Most likely, Han Fei wanted them to fight with him. In the cultivation method of heaven-opening realm powerhouses, in addition to normal cultivation, they could also learn from each other, sharpen their skills, and go through hardships to stabilize their cultivation faster and even improve their perception. She felt that this was probably Han Fei's idea. The only thing she didn't understand was why Han Fei wanted them to fight when he could easily kill a star transformation realm powerhouse. Han Fei smiled and said, What do you think of the giant whale fortress? Han Fei didn't really want to find a few followers for himself, mainly because he couldn't really attack the Crab King City again and again. Even if there was no emperor in the Crab King City. However, the Crab King City's third uncle was already very powerful. He was a powerhouse of the 10 great overlords, and he was one of the stronger ones. Moreover, there was definitely more than one powerhouse in the Crab King City. How could there only be one late-stage star transformation realm powerhouse who could build a mobile fortress? If this was the case, as long as someone could stall the late-stage star transformation realm powerhouse, this mobile fortress would be finished. However, from the way the young master of the Crab King City called him third uncle, Han Fei guessed that there were at least 3 late-stage star transformation realm super powerhouses in the Crab King City, which made more sense. If it were before, Han Fei would definitely not be willing to join forces with this group of people. If he was not careful, he would get himself killed. But now, he should be able to deal with one person. If there were really other powerhouses, Shueisha should be able to deal with one of them. Of course, if the other party had a third heaven-opening realm powerhouse, Han Fei still wouldn't be able to defeat them. But this also served the purpose of sharpening himself. Otherwise, if he could deal with a mobile fortress by himself, how could he sharpen himself? One of the reasons why Han Fei proposed to let Zhou Jingjing and the others follow him temporarily was to attract the attention of others. The mobile fortress and the sea monster fortress were both located by stargazing. Although in the starry sea, the stars were far away and they couldn't cross the starry sea. However, as long as they determined that the other party was a cultivator according to the position of the stars, they would chase in that direction, and the probability of meeting them was very high. However, what could be observed were usually the twinkling stars. If it was a lone star, it would be very difficult to observe. For example, in a certain part of the starry sky, there was originally only one star, but then many stars suddenly appeared. This would most likely confirm that there were cultivators there. However, in the starry sky, there were countless lone stars hanging high. Who knew which star corresponded to a cultivator? In the vast sea of stars, even if the cultivators representing the stars could move, because of the great distance, it was difficult to detect under normal circumstances. Therefore, the mobile castles and the sea monster fortresses were only good at discovering group targets. The occasional lone target was mostly due to luck. Zhou Jingjing looked at Han Fei solemnly. Why? Your strength is already strong enough to fight against celestial transformation late-stage powerhouses. Why do you still need us to follow you? Aren't you a lone ranger? Han Fei grinned and said, you should have guessed what I'm doing, right? Zhou Jingjing, you're honing yourself. You've chosen to use battle to hone yourself, and you need high-intensity battles. The stronger the enemy, the better. Of course, you can't be too strong. Han Fei said with a smile, smart. So, I need bait. Not only to attract the attention of the Crab King City, but also the attention of the sea monster fortresses of other strong people. Zhou Jingjing's teeth ached. Who said the word bait so boldly and blatantly? Besides, he was bait. If he was not careful, he would be doomed eternally. This Zhang Daqian was too ruthless. He even wanted to save him before. Sure enough, Han Fei added, don't worry. Since you are bait, I can naturally pay you a certain amount of remuneration. According to the resources we loot, the remuneration will be split 30 to 70. I'll take 70% and you take 30%. The strong had the right to decide the price. Han Fei didn't hesitate to tell Zhou Jingjing that this share was only for ordinary looted materials. In the face of looting materials on the level of the Crab King City, he thought it would be good enough to give Zhou Jingjing at most 5% of the resources. After all, they were just bait. Zhou Jingjing had no choice but to agree, although she knew that if she agreed to Han Fei, she would be asking a tiger for its skin, which was very dangerous. Zhou Jingjing asked, then can you return the previous resources to us? Han Fei frowned. Why should I return the resources that I looted with my own ability? Zhou Jingjing, another 3 years passed. At this moment, Han Fei, Zhou Jingjing, and the 4 heaven-opening state powerhouses were watching a giant shark escape. Yes, they had looted other sea monster fortresses once. Zhou Jingjing said, it's been 3 years. We have looted at least 70% or 80% of the sea monster fortresses in this sea area. The Crab King City has been lured more than a dozen times. Zhang Daqian, if you want to sharpen yourself, do you want to change places? In the past 3 years, Zhou Jingjing felt like she was treading on thin ice and was very careful every day. Although the resources they had harvested in the past 3 years were as good as the harvests of the previous 100 years, the Crab King City was now famous in this sea area. However, the name of the Great Thousand Realms had already resounded throughout this region of the sea. Every camp, island, ship, and fortress in the wilderness knew about the Great Thousand Realms. Yes, after following Han Fei, the name of the giant whale fortress was no longer used. The main reason was that Zhou Jingjing didn't want to ruin her reputation. Otherwise, when people found out that she was from the giant whale fortress, they would swarm up to kill her. But Han Fei didn't care. He even had the terrifying idea of turning the colossal world into a legend in the wilderness. At that time, when others heard that it was the colossal world, their first reaction would either be to run or to gang up on him. Next to him, another emperor said, yes. Boss Zhang, you've just heard that just next to our sea area, the seabed collapsed, revealing a huge ancient mountain range, where countless strong masters gathered. You can definitely sharpen your cultivation there. Han Fei nodded slightly. That makes sense. Then let's go to the ancient mountain range and have a look. Zhou Jingjing hesitated. Well, we don't have to go there. Okay. Let's go. Seeing Han Fei's look, Zhou Jingjing gave up. She simply felt that with Han Fei's personality, if he went to the ancient mountain range, he would definitely have conflicts with a lot of people, and then they would be in even more danger. Han Fei nodded slightly. We'll set off tomorrow, but for now, let's wait a little longer. Hearing that Han Fei wanted to wait a little longer, the faces of the heaven-opening state powerhouses around Zhou Jingjing all changed slightly. They all knew what Han Fei was waiting for. He was waiting. Crab King City. When the void fluctuated slightly, Zhou Jingjing suddenly shouted, "Everyone, go into the camp." 3 years ago, Han Fei said that Zhou Jingjing and the others were just bait. In the past few years, Zhou Jingjing and the others had played an excellent role as bait. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't feel afraid, because the sea monster fortresses could only accompany Han Fei to practice. No one could defeat them. However, some people were exceptions, and that was the Crab King City. Now, in this vast sea area, everyone knew that the Crab King City had a conflict with a sea monster fortress called the Colossal World. The Crab King City had tried to strangle the Colossal World more than a dozen times but failed to annihilate it. At this moment, the void shook. When Han Fei saw the figure that emerged from the void, he couldn't help but grin. "Yo! Xia Quan, Third Master Xia, are you alone today?" Third Master Xia's face twitched a few times. "I knew it was you, Zhang Daqian. Don't run this time. I'll kill you." Han Fei sneered. "Come on. I've gained something today. I won't run until we fight for 30,000 rounds." Third Master Xia scoffed. "That's what you said." BAM, 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 BAM. In terms of strength, Han Fei was naturally not as good as Third Master Xia, but he could take a beating. During the past 3 years, he had fought with Third Master Xia 7 or 8 times. In addition to Third Master Xia, Han Fei also fought with Second Master Xia 5 or 6 times. In terms of strength, Second Master Xia was at least 20% stronger than Third Master Xia. In the hands of Second Master Xia, Han Fei had to run away at most after 100 minutes. However, in the hands of Third Master Xia, Han Fei could barely hold on for more than half an hour. But this time, half an hour later, Third Master Xia was a little shocked. "Have you turned into a star?" Han Fei sneered. "If I were a star, would you be able to beat me?" In fact, in the 8th year of experience in the wilderness, Han Fei had finally consolidated a small part of his foundation. Half a month ago, he had an epiphany and his strength soared by 20%, or because he had consolidated his foundation and recovered his normal combat power, his strength had increased by 20%. This 20% was not a joke. This was the strength of his main body. Without using the Great Path, even though it was only a mere 20%, it was a breakthrough success. Because Han Fei found that as his soul and body became more and more balanced, the effect of strength consolidation became more and more obvious. After the true extreme balance, Han Fei thought that his basic strength might directly soar by more than 50%. An hour later, Han Fei's qi and blood surged. Although he couldn't fight anymore, it was really cool. This Third Master Xia was really reckless. He could beat him up every time. This time, Han Fei felt that it was equivalent to 10 years of cultivation. Suddenly, Han Fei subconsciously pinched his fingers and looked at the sky. His face suddenly changed. It had been exactly 1 day since the last 9 palace ruler of Providence. Oh, it's the second day. Chapter 2253. Today, Han Fei fought 2 consecutive battles. Although the battle with Master Xia Sen benefited a lot, it took him too long and he accidentally exceeded the time limit. Han Fei had a bad feeling about this and immediately shouted, "Zhou Jingjing, run!" Others could be kept in the giant whale Sea of Origin, but Zhou Jingjing couldn't, because Zhou Jingjing was stronger than the giant whale. Just like Zhang Daqian's clone, although it was nicknamed the Boundless World, it never accepted people. At first, in order to attract attention, Zhou Jingjing didn't run away, but only stayed far away after Master Xia San came. But in fact, it wasn't too far away. One was that Master Xia Sen was pinned down by Han Fei and had no time to care about her. The other was that although Zhou Jingjing had also been acting as bait in the past few years, she had learned too much from Han Fei's battles. She found that Han Fei's great techniques seemed to be inexhaustible. Besides, the Dao that Han Fei had mastered was very complicated, and his fighting style was also unusual. Therefore, although she didn't know how much Han Fei had grown in the past few years, she felt that she was growing rapidly, obtaining more resources, understanding more combat techniques, and using the Dao more skillfully. Her strength had increased by at least 30%. In such a situation, Zhou Jingjing certainly didn't want to miss it, so she had to watch the battle from the sidelines. Because the Crab King City didn't dare to send ordinary heaven-opening state experts to kill Han Fei, no one would disturb her. However, this time, an accident happened. A crack suddenly appeared in the void, and Xia Xian, the second big shot of the Crab King City that Han Fei was also familiar with, rushed out of the void. Xia Xian shouted, "Zhang Daqian, we failed to catch you every time we joined hands. Do you really think the Crab King City didn't find anything?" Zhou Jingjing was shocked. What happened? Why was he caught this time? Didn't Zhang Daqian have a way to avoid the pursuit of the Crab King City? Han Fei activated the Tao of space, and under the distortion of the void, he burst out at 3 times the speed of light. When he burst out at the speed of light, Han Fei's figure shook, and a black mist invisible to the naked eye dispersed. Xia Xian bellowed, "It's only 3 times the speed of light. Do you think you can escape?" At that moment, Xia Xian suddenly disappeared and forcibly broke into Han Fei's twisted void. He also burst out at the speed of light, but it was even faster than 3 times the speed of light, maybe 4 times or even 5 times the speed of light. Xia Xian shouted, "Zhang Daqian, let's see how you can escape today." Buzz, after saying that, Xia Xian also joined in the superluminal explosion. However, his superluminal speed was only 4 times. But even so, he was faster than Han Fei. The main reason was that he didn't grasp as many great Daos as Han Fei. Therefore, even though he had been a star for a long time, his understanding of the speed of light was only slightly better than Han Fei's. Over the years, Han Fei didn't have a deep understanding of the speed of light. However, he could be considered to have understood that the heaven-opening realm's superluminal eruption was at most 10 times the speed of light. 10 times the speed of light was like a dividing line. It was difficult for ordinary heaven-opening realm cultivators to break through. This was also part of the prediction that Senior Brother Azure Dragon gave him during the small meeting in the Void Temple, but he didn't make it very clear, probably because he wanted Han Fei to explore it. In this case, Han Fei definitely couldn't escape by running normally. With Han Fei's current strength, he couldn't even beat Xia Xian. If there was another Xia Xian, he would definitely be defeated. If the two of them fought together, Han Fei wouldn't even be able to last for 100 minutes. Han Fei had only run tens of millions of kilometers when he was stopped by these two people. However, after fighting for less than 2 minutes, Xia Xian's face suddenly changed. No, the strength is not right. Zhang Daqian's strength is at least 30% weaker, and his physique is not as strong as before. Xia Xian immediately shouted, "Brother, take down Zhou Jingjing." Zhou Jingjing, who had run tens of millions of kilometers away, had no idea what was going on behind her. At this time, all she could do was run. If she was 1 step slower, the consequences would be unimaginable. She had thought that she would be able to escape this time around. However, the void space in front of her suddenly trembled, and a human figure grabbed out toward her at superluminal speed. Zhou Jingjing hadn't even comprehended the speed of light yet. How could she fight back in the face of this grab? She knew in her heart that she was doomed this time. Xia Wuyin, the boss of the Crab King City, was here, and she couldn't escape. At that moment, when Zhou Jingjing thought she was going to die this time, a voice sounded in her ears, "Open your mind." Huh? This voice, like a life-saving straw, ignited the hope of survival in Zhou Jingjing's heart. Gemini as one. In a flash, Zhou Jingjing only felt her eyes go black, and then she appeared in an unknown world. She immediately realized that this should be Zhang Daqian's origin sea. Unfortunately, this origin sea was not open to her, so she couldn't feel this origin sea. Outside. At the moment when Han Fei put Zhou Jingjing away, Xia Wuyin, the boss of the Crab King City, had already reached her. At this time, Xia Wuyin was also shocked. This guy's speed had completely exceeded the scope of the speed of light. This should be a kind of great technique that could separate two places. In the Crab King City's understanding of Han Fei, he had never used this kind of great technique. Otherwise, how could the Crab King City not have a countermeasure? Han Fei only felt a terrifying force drilling into his body, which was disintegrating the operation of the power in his body, and even wanted to interfere with the burst of the great Tao in his body. Fortunately, Han Fei's physique was strong, and he locked that force in an instant, sealing it in his body. Cough! Han Fei twisted the void, but he was still blasted away by Xia Wuyin's palm. A mouthful of essence blood was in his mouth, but he swallowed it forcibly. Xia Wuyin sneered. Zhang Daqian, today the three of us are here. You can't escape. At this time, Han Fei didn't pay attention to this guy at all. He was wondering whether to use Blood Demon or the Great Tao of Time. If he used Blood Demon, there were three people on the opposite side, and he still couldn't escape. So, Han Fei made up his mind and directly accelerated the time around him. Swish, swish, swish. Xia Wuyin only saw that Han Fei's speed suddenly skyrocketed, and in the blink of an eye, it exceeded 4 times the speed of light, and even seemed to reach 5 times the speed of light. At that time, Xia Wuyin was stunned. Did this kid really not turn into a star? In his life, he had never seen a strong man who hadn't turned into a star who could burst out such a fast speed. This was not the swordsman or boxing master of the Eastern Sword Pavilion or the Fistlight Mountain. Even if he could reach such a speed in an instant, how could he run so fast? Xia Wuyin was speechless. This guy was hit by my palm, but he was not hurt at all. And he could still continue to burst out while resisting my great Tao of corrosion? When Xia Wuyin chased after him, he broke a light blue barrier, and suddenly felt that his speed suddenly slowed down. His terrifying speed, which had exceeded 7 times the speed of light, directly fell to only 4 times the speed of light. Great Tao of Time. Xia Wuyin was shocked. Why the fuck did this Great Tao of Time appear? Fortunately, this Great Tao of Time couldn't stop him for long. Just 2 seconds later, Xia Wuyin suddenly shattered the power of time. However, Han Fei's figure was gone now. In 2 or 3 seconds, under the exaggerated escape speed of 5 times the speed of light, Han Fei had already run thousands of kilometers. It would be difficult to catch up with him. At this time, Xia Laosan and Xia Laosan caught up one after another. Xia Laosan asked, "Boss, where is he?" Xia Wuyin replied, "He ran away." "Zhou Jing and Jing Yu were taken away by him." "Wow." Xia Xian asked, "Boss, didn't you stop that kid?" "Wait, how could that kid cross thousands of kilometers so quickly and come directly from our side to your side?" Xia Wuyin said, "This kid's identity is by no means ordinary. He hid a lot of things. In the blink of an eye, he crossed so far without any gap. Even I can't do it. Even those who are stronger than me and are about to reach the Tao-proving realm can't do it. This kid must have secret techniques and life-saving divine skills." And Xia Wuyin said leisurely, "He actually took the Great Tao of Time." Xia Xian. Xia Quan. Xia Quan exclaimed, "Great Tao of Time, this. Did we provoke someone we shouldn't provoke?" Xia Wuyin shook his head slightly. "Not necessarily from the Temple of Time. This person's Great Tao is too heterogeneous. He can master every Great Tao, so he may not necessarily be from the Temple of Time. Have you ever heard of people from the Temple of Time cultivating these messy Great Tao?" Xia Xian and Xia Quan shook their heads. The Great Tao of Time was extremely powerful. If Xia Quan had known that Han Fei took the Great Tao of Time in the first battle, he wouldn't have chased him. After all, it was just a few ordinary heaven-opening realm powerhouses who died. In the wilderness, there were many heaven-opening realm powerhouses. Generally, as long as they hunted a sea monster fortress, they could be replenished. Who would want to offend someone who had mastered the Great Tao of Time for this? Xia Quan asked, "Boss, what should we do now?" Even if that kid is not from the Temple of Time, he is extremely sinister and haunts us many times. Will he come back to retaliate against us? Xia Wuyin thought for a while and said, now it seems that he didn't hide so many abilities just to deal with us. I'm afraid this kid is using us as a whetstone. Hiss. Xia Xian was furious. I'll tear him apart. How dare he use my Crab King city as a whetstone? Is he tired of living? Xia Wuyin glared at him. If you don't have the ability to keep us here, why are you shouting here? My great Tao of corrosion hit his body and left a mark. With his strength, he shouldn't be able to break it in a short time. I'll catch up with him and not give him a chance to breathe. Whether I can kill him or not, at least I can't let him stay in the sea under our jurisdiction. Chapter 2254. 7 days later. Above a certain sea area, Han Fei cursed, son of a bitch, this old man won't let me go. I just used your Crab King city as a whetstone. I didn't make you bald. Why do you keep chasing me? Han Fei thought that since he had killed An Taiping and Qiu Shouzang, he could fight against a late-stage star condensation powerhouse. But in fact, when he really fought with Xia Wuyin, he found that this person was not only strong, but also comparable to a powerhouse at the level of Qiu Shouzang. His Tao was also very insidious. When this Tao entered his body, it fled everywhere. He used the heavenly awakening divine technique on his whole body, but this thing could barely resist. Until today, it was almost obliterated by him. At the moment when the corrosion Tao disappeared, Xia Wuyin, who had been chasing Han Fei all the way, frowned, stopped his pursuit, and murmured, disappeared, how could it disappear? Even the Tao is gone. How did that kid do it? Exciting. Han Fei knew that he had gotten rid of the pursuit. Recalling the direction he escaped, and then according to the time and speed of rushing all the way, he roughly judged his location. Huh. Han Fei didn't expect that he had run so far in the past few days. He had almost run out of the Crab King city's sphere of influence. Now, Han Fei's position in the wilderness was already very far from the chaotic wasteland. The only place that was relatively close to this place might be the Ghost Strait. However, the Spectre Strait was about half a light year away from where he was. However, the ancient place that Han Fei had been hearing about in the Crab King city's sphere of influence seemed to be in this area. Han Fei estimated that as long as he walked to the next sea area, he should be able to find the so-called God's ruins in half a month or a month at most. As for the Crab King city, he couldn't beat them yet. The main reason was that their boss was too powerful. This whetstone might even grind the knife into pieces. What was the point? Therefore, Han Fei simply gave up. Didn't they say that there were many strong masters near the ancient mountain range? Then he would go there and have a look. However, before going to the ancient mountain range, Han Fei released Zhou Jingjing and the others. Zhou Jingjing's first reaction was, you got rid of the Crab King city's pursuit. Han Fei sneered. A mere Crab King city is insignificant. I'm letting you out today to return your freedom. Zhou Jingjing thought to himself, I've seen you get beaten up countless times. You make it sound like Crab King city is just a piece of trash in your eyes. Zhou Jingjing was stunned. Give us back our freedom. In the past few years, although Zhou Jingjing had been on tenterhooks, he had come to realize the benefits of relying on the strong. Although Han Fei used them as bait, every time Han Fei could defeat his opponents, and they could always get some leftovers. This was much better than when they were the fortress of sea monsters. Now, Han Fei was going to give them back their freedom. Was he going to let them go? Han Fei said leisurely, I'm going to take a look around the ancient mountain range. Although you guys are strong, it's too dangerous there. I may not be able to guarantee your safety. So, what's your choice? How should I choose? Zhou Jingjing was a little confused. Didn't you already decide? What do you mean how should I choose? Wait, Zhou Jingjing suddenly came to his senses. That didn't seem to be the case. Although the ancient mountain range was dangerous, in the wilderness, which place was not dangerous? As members of the sea monster fortress, they were already quite strong in the wilderness. And a place like the ancient mountain range, after it appeared, there would be a large number of strong people exploring it. However, no matter how many strong people explored, the wilderness was vast, and as long as they were careful, no strong people would really notice them. Besides, most of the time, the strong people they encountered were at most about the same level as them. If they were even stronger, why would they bother with them? If they were really that strong, then they wouldn't mind robbing an ordinary heaven-opening expert like him. For people like Han Fei, robbing was not what he wanted. Zhou Jingjing's eyes lit up. Can we continue to be bait? Han Fei grinned and said, yes, but I won't give you a raise. Besides, in that ancient mountain range, I'm afraid there will be more and more enemies. You have to be mentally prepared not to come out to hunt for a long time. In fact, Han Fei didn't want to disband this bait for the time being. After all, they cooperated so well, and there would be decades of cooperation in the future. It would be more troublesome to find new partners. Zhou Jingjing took a deep breath and said firmly, we can continue to be bait. He didn't know why, but Zhou Jingjing felt that this was an opportunity. She knew what Han Fei meant. He meant that there were many strong people on the ancient mountain range, so naturally there would be many enemies. The reason why Han Fei proposed that they could leave freely was to give them a choice. Zhou Jingjing thought to herself. In fact, Han Fei hadn't completely understood the law of survival in the wilderness. As long as there was meat to eat, as long as they could rise, many people were willing to pay some price. If she acted as bait for Han Fei, the harvest would be hundreds of times that of hunting alone. Why wouldn't she be bait? Han Fei smiled. Then it's a deal. If one day I can't guarantee your safety, it will be the time you and I go our separate ways. As for whether you can leave safely at that time, it's none of my business. Originally, Han Fei had another plan, which was to find another team to act as bait on the ancient mountain range. In the past few years, he found that Zhou Jingjing was doing well. Most of the resources they harvested were provided to the people in her camp. However, not everyone was like Zhou Jingjing. He wanted to find some vicious people as bait, so it didn't matter if they lost them. But since Zhou Jingjing was willing to be bait, he had nothing to say. After all, the two sides cooperated well. Half a month later. Under the guidance of the nautical panorama, Han Fei found the location of the ancient mountain range very accurately. However, the territory occupied by this ancient mountain range was beyond Han Fei's imagination. Han Fei thought that it was just a mountain range. How big could it be? As an ancient relic, it should be as big as the 100,000 mountains at least. But in fact, this was not the case. For example, at this moment, a group of demon conches who were about to attack Han Fei and the others were trembling under Han Fei's pressure. The leading shaking demon conch said nervously, Sir, now this ancient mountain range has been named the God's Ruins by many explorers. We can't calculate how big the periphery of the ruins is. Occasionally, there will be strange phenomena. It is said that some people have seen divine weapons here, and there are also rumors that some people have picked up a large pit of black-yellow soil here, and some people say that natural treasures and ancient demon cores have been excavated here. As for the real God's ruins, we have never been there. It is said that anyone below the heaven-opening state will definitely die if they enter. Han Fei asked, why are there so few heaven-opening state powerhouses in such a big place? According to what you said, there seems to be a lot of good things in the periphery. The demon conch smiled bitterly. Sir, that's because there are more opportunities in the places outside the ruins. I heard that half a year ago, someone got some kind of opportunity there and directly reached the Dao realm. Reached the Dao realm? Han Fei was confused. How could it be so easy to reach the Dao realm? Okay, you can go now. Han Fei thought to himself, treasure digging is my strength. With the navigator, I don't necessarily need to go to the inner area immediately. According to the demon conch, the inner area is extremely dangerous, and the opportunities in the outer area seem to be not small. Anyway, it has been a long time since he came out of the God's ruins, so he didn't have to rush there. Under the guidance of the navigator, Han Fei began to rummage and dig around. 3 days later. Bam! Han Fei dug through a mountain, and a strange light burst out. A red crystal soared into the sky and was caught in Han Fei's hand. However, the brilliant light did not disappear. Instead, it turned into a red cloud that began to spread outward. This kind of obvious energy fluctuation radiated outward at the speed of light. Han Fei was dumbfounded. At the same time, people nearby and a little further away glanced in Han Fei's direction. Huh? Is there a strange treasure? The phenomenon of heaven and earth is beyond the range of perception. It seems to be a good treasure. Which bastard is so lucky? Why can't I find any treasure? Han Fei stared at the red crystal in his hand, and information appeared in his eyes. Name: God's Crystal. Introduction. The blood of gods has lost its vitality and finally solidified into a magical crystal. In the God's Crystal, there is a trace of the Great Way of the Gods. The Great Way of the Gods can also absorb a trace of souls to consolidate the souls and flesh. Level: Heaven and Earth. Spiritual treasure. Quality: regular. It contains chi and blood. Effect: this God's Crystal can replenish chi and blood and help cultivate the body. The effect is extraordinary. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. So it's just a heaven and earth spiritual treasure. Shouldn't the blood of gods be at least a chaos spiritual treasure? Han Fei thought for a while. This God's Crystal seemed to be only useful for tempering the body, because it contained chi and blood and nothing else. Han Fei quickly put it into the Origin Sea. He didn't use it immediately, because he knew that tempering the body was not something that could be done overnight. He was here to search for treasures, not to cultivate in a treasure trove. Maybe because of the special environment here, there were many big and small treasures, so even though Han Fei confirmed with the navigator, he still missed some. He dug out some small items that were not very valuable. Another 2 days passed. Han Fei dug a mountain and saw a piece of green jade. He was just about to grab it. However, immediately, the mountain collapsed, and the place caved in. Hundreds of mountains in the surroundings were destroyed along with them. At the same time, more than 100 mountains collapsed, forming a force that turned into ripples and spread in all directions, as if to show the extraordinary power of the thing in Han Fei's hand. When Han Fei took a closer look, his eyes lit up. It was the heavenly jade essence. The Emperor of 10,000 Scales once rewarded him with one. The effect of this thing was equivalent to 100 years of body tempering. Chapter 2255. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. In just 5 days, he had obtained 2 body-refining treasures in a row. If he had known that there were so many treasures in this god's ruin, he would have come long ago. Why would he wait until now? Tsk. I'm going to be rich this time. Han Fei's mood at the moment could only be described as surging with excitement. Treasure digging, this was the real treasure digging. Any random move would be a spirit treasure. This was a treasure land bestowed by God. Another 3 days passed. Han Fei dug towards a high mountain. This high mountain was extraordinary. At first glance, he knew it was not an ordinary mountain. Other people probably thought the same when they encountered it. They all thought there was some treasure suppressed under it, so they all came to dig, causing many holes to be dug on it. However, Han Fei was sure that they didn't dig out the real treasure. Otherwise, the celestial navigation instrument wouldn't point here. Therefore, Han Fei also began to dig. This mountain was tens of thousands of meters high, and the rock wall was hard. Other mountains were peak-shaped, but this mountain was columnar. Clang, 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 thud, thud, thud. Perhaps this mountain had been dug many times, so everyone knew that there was nothing good here, so no one came here. Han Fei knocked and knocked, so no one knew. Han Fei dug all the way from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the ground, and then kept digging from the bottom of the ground. After 5 days of digging, he finally saw a bone shrouded by a barrier and emitting a strange brilliance. Huh? A bone? Han Fei frowned. He thought he was looking for a peerless treasure, but this treasure turned out to be a bone. What was the use of a bone? It couldn't be eaten, nor could it be used for anything. Of course, this was just Han Fei's complaint. How could a bone that was so well hidden and difficult to dig out be an ordinary thing? Han Fei immediately reached out to grab the bone, but when he tried to grab it, his giant hand was directly melted by the light emitted by the bone. Fuck! Han Fei cursed, with a look of shock in his eyes. It's just a bone. Could it be the bone of a god? When Han Fei got closer, he found that a force was trying to break through his defense and invade his body. But the strength was still within his bearable range. As he got closer and closer, he finally dug out a rock wall. It was as if a barrier had been dug through. The dazzling golden light instantly broke through the passageway and enveloped him. Hiss! Han Fei gasped. He felt that there was an extremely terrifying power that made his body and soul tremble. Didn't they say that this is only the outer area of the god's ruin? I haven't even been inside yet. How did you manage to dig out such a thing? Han Fei felt that his blood was almost boiling, rushing like the waves of the sea. Xiao Chen's flesh and blood trembled spontaneously. The primal chaos qi he gave off barely resisted the resplendent golden light, preventing it from entering his body. However, this persistence lasted for less than 100 breaths. Han Fei felt that the rock wall below him and the mountain high above him were faintly trembling. Not good. Han Fei was horrified. In order to dig out this bone, he had dug too deep. If the mountain collapsed, he would be buried immediately. Although Han Fei was not afraid of being buried, the rock wall here was solid and seemed to be stained with a magical aura, so it was extremely difficult to break through it directly. It would take him at least 5 or 6 days of digging before he could dig out another passageway. Presumably, there would be another group of people around this mountain. Unfortunately, the more he didn't want something, the more likely it would come. With a rumble, stone chips flew behind Han Fei, completely blocking the way. Han Fei made a backhand gesture and set up a reverse gravity field to block the surging force. He leaned closer to the bone. When Han Fei looked at the bone again, some information popped up. Name: Holy Bones. Introduction: Holy bones are mostly the broken and necrotic bones of gods. When this thing is formed, it no longer belongs to the bones of gods. But it has a trace of divinity. Holy bones may contain the blood, divine thoughts, divine power, divine skills, divine marrow. Ordinary people can't easily try them. Once they can't bear the divinity, they will be enslaved by the gods and become the carrier of the gods' resurrection. Level: the divine, quality, regular, content, unknown, effect, unknown, hiss. Seeing this information, Han Fei didn't know whether to be happy or speechless. If he was careless, he would be enslaved by the gods. Didn't it mean that this thing was probably left by the gods on purpose? Their purpose was to be found and then resurrected with the help of others. In essence, what was the difference between this and possession? Han Fei was horrified. So, the power that was crazily trying to drill into his body was actually a kind of divinity? Son of a bitch. You've been dead for tens of thousands of years, and you still want to kill me? I'm going to refine you. Yin-Yang Millstone. At that moment, the Yin-Yang Millstone was formed in Han Fei's body. All the power, absorbed by the Yin-Yang Millstone, would eventually become the purest power. If the Yin-Yang Millstone couldn't resist it, he could resist this thing by force. Down below, Han Fei was frantically resisting the erosion of the divinity. In the outside world, the whole mountain seemed to have become a golden mountain, shining brilliantly. How could such a handsome appearance not attract attention? In just 3 to 5 days, many experts discovered the opportunity here and rushed here. Someone exclaimed in surprise, "Isn't this mountain riddled with holes a long time ago? Why is it suddenly glowing now?" Someone was surprised. What a beautiful place. There must be precious treasures here. Someone was excited. Finally, a peerless treasure has appeared on the periphery. If I can find it, I may be able to soar to the sky in a single step. Those who came rushed into the Golden Mountain, but the mountain had collapsed in many places, and they couldn't find the way. Secondly, when some people dug into the mountain, their eyes flickered as they dug. They could vaguely feel that golden light seemed to appear in their minds, as if they were about to have an epiphany of the firmament great technique. Some people were overjoyed, thinking that this place was a magical treasure land. When the treasure light entered their bodies, it would help them have an epiphany. Some people were shocked that their consciousness was sometimes out of their control. Where did this terrifying power come from? Why did it appear? Was it harmful to them? There were all kinds of situations, but no one who rushed into the mountain was willing to retreat. Even if some people wanted to retreat, they had a kind of resistance in their hearts, as if there was a voice deep in their hearts calling them. Stay and keep digging. I have a feeling that a great fortune is coming to me. More and more people came to this mountain. And under the mountain, Han Fei's resistance was quite difficult. But at the same time, Han Fei was surprised to find that Little Black and Little White had advanced after only one day of the Yin Yang Millstone. Well, Han Fei sensed that not only Little Black and Little White had advanced. He found that the divine power purified by the Yin Yang Millstone was slowly fusing into his flesh and bone marrow. In just one day, a drop of golden jade essence was produced. This phenomenon shocked Han Fei. He had cultivated hard for 300 years and only produced a total of 8 drops of golden jade essence, but under the illumination of this bone, it only took him one day to produce a drop. What did this mean? Han Fei was horrified. If he cultivated here, his physique would soar by leaps and bounds. This surge was brought by the golden jade essence, which was a solid foundation. 1 day. 2 days. 3 days. On this day, Little Black and Little White advanced again. Another drop of golden jade essence was produced in Han Fei's body. At this moment, Han Fei didn't want to leave. He knew that he had indeed encountered a great opportunity this time. Under the illumination of the divine bone, his cultivation speed was directly increased by 1,000 times, even 10,000 times. In addition to the growth of the golden jade essence, Han Fei felt that his flesh and blood were also slightly strengthened. Han Fei estimated that according to this cultivation nourishment, he could consolidate his foundation without having to forcibly transform his soul and body, which was all good without any harm. But Han Fei didn't know that in the outside world, the flames of war were raging. Someone went crazy and laughed out loud. Mine, it's all mine. I foresee the divine path, I foresee the divine path. While crazily devouring the endless brilliance, the man swallowed the endless brilliance. And his strength was indeed skyrocketing. Bullshit, the divine path is mine. Who do you think you are? And such a situation happened not only to this person. Other people also seemed to have seen the divine path. Seeing that someone wanted to compete with them for the divine path, how could they give up? For a time, a war broke out here, and the strong fought for supremacy. In the next few days, people who went to this mountain saw that the battle here had gone crazy. The mountain was almost flattened, but the golden light didn't dissipate. Seeing those guys who said that they had seen the divine path fighting each other crazily, the latecomers didn't dare to enter. Someone sighed. Crazy, these people have gone crazy from fighting. This golden light is too dangerous. We can't touch it. Someone sighed. These guys keep saying that they saw the divine path. Is there a god-level treasure suppressed below? Many people, although afraid of this golden light, refused to leave, wanting to see the mystery here. On this day. It was the 10th day of Han Fei's operation of the Yin Yang Millstone. His 3rd drop of golden jade essence had just been produced, and Little Black and Little White had advanced again. This time, Han Fei suddenly heard a voice in his ears, those who inherit my Tao can communicate with the divine path. Chapter 2256. Who's there? Han Fei was alarmed. The voice that suddenly appeared in his ears alarmed him. It was a desire from the bottom of his heart, which made him eager to obtain power. That feeling was right in front of him. Was the holy bone tempting him? Han Fei frowned and sneered. What's the condition? You only have a bone left, and you still want to tempt me? Emperor Sparrow, it's time to eat. This kind of impure temptation was also a kind of evil power. This kind of power made many people fall into chaos. The Emperor Sparrow was born to devour this kind of power. Therefore, the moment the Emperor Sparrow came out, he knew Han Fei's purpose. As the Emperor Sparrow opened its mouth, a tremendous amount of golden light surged into his body. The Emperor Sparrow's voice sounded in Han Fei's heart, very pure divine power. I'm afraid it's the remaining power of a god, right? Han Fei said, I don't know. Anyway, it's good for me to cultivate with this power. The Emperor Sparrow said, I'm afraid your cultivation won't last long. This kind of divine power is good, but if you absorb too much of it, it will affect you. Fortunately, you still have the yin-yang millstone. Otherwise, you might have gone crazy or even been parasitized by this godhood. In the distant future, the power of godhood may awaken in your body. Han Fei was alarmed. Then what should I do? Give it up. The Emperor Sparrow said, if you can forge it with the spiritual fire of heaven and earth, you might be able to refine it into a weapon, at least a divine weapon. Otherwise, I advise you to give it up. It's not easy to take something left by a god. Han Fei was tempted. Why didn't you say so earlier? I'm good at refining. I happen to have a lot of refining materials that I don't need in the Origin Sea. Han Fei said, got it. Go back and rest. I'll deal with it. The Emperor Sparrow asked, are you sure you can deal with it? Han Fei said, if I can't, I can just leave. After taking the Emperor Sparrow back into the Origin Sea, Han Fei condensed a giant hand again and grabbed at the holy bone. Unfortunately, his terrifying power collapsed when it was about to touch it. Han Fei was not in a hurry. He stretched out his hand, and the demon purification pot appeared in his palm. Han Fei, who could barely use part of the demon purification pot's power, let the demon purification pot stretch out a small vine, clasped the holy bone, and dragged it into the demon purification pot. How could the divine bone be willing? It displayed a powerful will to resist the demon purification gourd. At that moment, strange scenes appeared in the outside world. However, the golden halo finally dissipated, and what replaced it was a void divine shadow that was covered in strange Tao patterns. The heaven-opening experts who had been fighting had originally been in a killing frenzy, but at that moment, they all stopped at the same time and attacked the mountain, as if they wanted to bore through it. Boom, boom, Han Fei frowned when he sensed the slight vibration underground. What happened outside? Looks like it's going to cause quite a commotion. Master Calabash, let's go. In the demon purification gourd, several small vines moved at the same time and began to drag the holy bone. Sure enough, the holy bone couldn't resist the power of the demon purification pot and was dragged into it. Phew! Han Fei breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he didn't try to pick it up directly. Otherwise, he would have been troubled. As for body refinement, Han Fei had a good idea. There was no such thing as a pie in the sky. It was incredible that a drop of the golden jade essence could be produced in just a few days. At the moment when he heard it, his heart was touched and he had an inexplicable impulse. The power he absorbed had been tempered by the yin-yang millstone. But no matter what, this time he had gained a lot. 10 days of cultivation here was better than 10 years of body refinement. Since he couldn't grasp the power of the holy bone, he might as well let him refine it. Refine. Han Fei didn't care what was needed to refine this holy bone. As soon as the demon purification pot was opened, he threw a lot of rare treasures from the Origin Sea into it. He didn't know if they could be refined into divine weapons, but he knew they were all good stuff. An hour later. The vibration of the bottom of the sea was getting weaker and weaker. Han Fei didn't know if it was because the holy bone had been completely refined, but he seemed to hear a roar. At this moment, in Han Fei's Origin Sea, half of the materials he had plundered over the years were sucked clean. More than 500,000 strands of chaotic energy were swallowed, and more than 20,000 strands of immortal spiritual energy were swallowed. When a pair of black gloves inlaid with dark golden weird patterns appeared in front of him, information emerged in Han Fei's eyes. Name: God-slaying gloves. Introduction. It's made of the holy bone, the grand green essence, the ancient dragon vein, the star jade, and the crystallization of everything. The gloves have natural Taoist patterns and can burst out 30% of the power. The God-slaying gloves are bloodthirsty, soul-devouring, and have demonic energy. Once the demonic energy enters the body, it can cause chaos and madness. Quality: a high-quality divine weapon. Soul attachment: a nun effect, a bloodthirsty, soul-devouring, and chaos recastable, unrefined. Remarks: natural Taoist patterns and can burst out for a long time. Seeing this pair of gloves, Han Fei nodded with satisfaction. Although he majored in knife techniques, his knife techniques were too simple. Once something happened, it was more likely that he would be recognized. And he was also good at fist techniques, so he could pretend to be someone from the Mountain of Fist Radiance. Han Fei couldn't help but grin, stretched out his hand, and took the gloves. A high-quality divine weapon required blood to recognize its owner, which consumed a lot of vitality. But what Han Fei didn't lack now was vitality and lifespan. Besides, his strength was not weak now, and his vitality was rich and majestic. After only 5 apocalyptic divine techniques, Han Fei subdued the god-slaying gloves. It took Han Fei 5 days to dig out the depths of the ground. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. Before he had time to run, the surrounding void fell into a strange big array. A barrier? Han Fei was horrified. He looked down, only to find that there was a huge pit under him. The original pillar-shaped mountain was completely gone, and even the ground had been blasted into an abyss dozens of kilometers deep. For a moment, 7 strong masters with red eyes charged at Han Fei. Was I ambushed? Han Fei didn't panic, but he didn't expect to be ambushed like this. Did what happened below attract the attention of the outside world? The only thing Han Fei could think of was that the divine bone had attracted a lot of people. Swish! Someone swept past Han Fei, and the void here was slashed apart. A void storm surged like a wave, covering the place where Han Fei was. Although Han Fei also wanted to sharpen himself through fighting, there would obviously be more people here. This void had been blocked by an inexplicable barrier. If he didn't kill those enemies, how could he feel at ease? So, when the first heaven-opening state powerhouse passed by him, Han Fei also swept to the side, grabbed a void-long knife, and swept past this person. Both of them were extremely fast, and there was a feeling of meeting on a narrow road. Bam! Half of that person's body exploded. Han Fei wanted to conserve his strength, so he didn't use his full strength. Even so, Han Fei felt that the person he had killed couldn't recover in less than 5 minutes. And the other 6 heaven-opening state powerhouses, someone shouted, "The divine path is mine, no one can take it away." Someone madly burned his blood essence, using his own blood essence as a seal, trying to seal Han Fei. Fuck, are they risking their lives? Han Fei realized that something was wrong. These people seemed to have gone crazy. Half of the body of the person behind him exploded, but the first thing he did was not to repair his body, but to turn back and madly attack him. Are they really crazy? Han Fei frowned. These people seemed to have lost their minds and were fighting desperately. If these people are crazy, who set up the barrier? Han Fei shattered the blood seal on his body with a backhand and punched a heaven-opening state powerhouse. His soul was like a thorn, piercing through this person's soul. Bam, bam, bam on Han Fei's fists, there were waves of blood light, his tyrannical physique, and the domineering Emperor Slayer's fist mark, which seemed to be telling the story of his origin. And behind the scenes, on the head of a giant tortoise, stood several young powerhouses. A young man exclaimed, "Are these people from the Fist Light Mountain? Why are the people from the Fist Light Mountain here?" Someone frowned and said, "They probably came to the wilderness to gain experience and happened to get the news of the mythical ruins. This person's physique is so strong that he can withstand the attacks of these lunatics. His combat power is so domineering that he can kill them with one blow. It seems that he is undoubtedly at the late stage of the star formation realm." Someone frowned and said, "Since he is from the Fist Light Mountain, should we fight him? What this person showed must not be his full strength. If he goes all out, I'm afraid he won't be weak. However, a man in a black robe sneered. What's wrong with the Fist Light Mountain? Since you got the treasure, you must know that you will be killed. Besides, when have we, the ghost straight, been afraid of the people from the Fist Light Mountain? The young man raised his hands slightly. Get ready, activate the demonic sound soul extinguishing array.